Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. This is a very first thing, so let me explain what the heck is going on here. I'm Steve from Mac84, and this is a brand new type of a show. It's called OpenTalk, sort of a ripoff of Apple Talk and OpenDoc, so we'll see how this goes. But essentially, this is kind of like a chat between two geeky people, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So let me know if the audio sounds good, let me know if the video looks good, and we'll move on from those necessities here, and then we'll introduce our guest. So let's see. Got a bunch of people in the chat, almost 40 people. Thank you very much for the super chat, Ivan. That's very much appreciated. Around here we do wild eeps for super chats. I don't know how I got into that, but it's going to continue forever. So eep! So thank you very much. All right, so what I'm going to do here is, let's see, everything looks good. Everyone likes the shelves. Good, because I dragged over the computer to get this shot, so it better have been worth it. All right, so our first guest on this show is somebody I've known for quite a while through Instagram, and I'll be introducing him as soon as I can click the proper button here in OBS. There we go. And here's James, also known as Hypercard.
Hello.
And let me know if James's
Hello.
audio is good. James, you could say a little song or whatever you want to test your audio.
I don't know any songs. Actually, no, I do loads of songs, but Wait. What about if I eat? Do you want a wild
Yeah,
eat?
let's hear an
Eep,
eep. Ah, there we go. Nice.
eep.
You're now part of the team
How
forever.
many do you need?
Well, only one's good, I guess. I mean, all right. James sounds good. All right, everything sounds good. We pulled it off, James. I think you're the lucky charm. It works now. So awesome. So I know a bit about you, but a lot of people probably watching don't. So please introduce yourself, plug whatever the heck you want, and tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm James. I'm over here in London. You might tell from my accent that I grew up here. So, yeah, I've been. I don't really. Well, I mean, I can talk about. Really, I mean, I guess I'm just like everyone else. I've got some sort of, I don't know, disease, problem, like some sort of mental weakness, where I seem to have to sort of every time I come across some old obsolete piece of hardware, I have a sort of strong feeling of warmth towards it and wanting to protect it and collect it and store it away, and the all the usual behaviors of kidding myself that I'll do something in particular with it one day, and maybe I will and maybe I won't, and I've definitely been doing that since I was probably, I don't know, 11 or 12 years
Oh,
old
wow.
or something, and that's quite a long time ago now. And I definitely had a cupboard full of retro computers when I was like a teenager. I don't think I had very few Macs because it was still, they were still useful then.
So they're mostly PCs, or did you have a particular brand you had a lot of?
Well, so my family did get our first like proper family computer, like which was a Mac in '92. It was a Classic 2, and but I was, I didn't have my own computer and I wanted my own. So basically by then, in the early '90s, you could buy like lots of '80s like microcomputers in like, charity shops or what you might call like thrift stores in the States. And I remember buying a Sinclair ZX81 for like £5,
Oh, wow.
and I ended up with. So I had all that kind of thing. So I had like a couple of ZX81s. I had like a Spectrum. I had an Amstrad CPC that my cousin gave me. I had an Acorn Electron, which was
Oh,
quite
wow.
fancy. But I don't. And I would program in like BASIC on them and stuff like that.
That's cool, though. You
But
actually used them. You didn't just like
yeah.
store them away.
Oh yeah, no, and I haven't got them here, but I've got all these things I found years ago, about a couple of years ago, from when I was a kid, where I just used to write out basic program listings on like backs of envelopes and stuff. I don't know why I couldn't use like normal bits of paper, but I've got this stack of like, envelopes that I guess my parents got mail in, and of all these program listings on them. And I seem to remember the commons. So the reason I wrote them out was because every time I saved something onto cassette tape, because we didn't have disk drives on British microcomputers, we had cassettes. Every time I saved something, I could never load it back again.
Oh.
So I just didn't. So I never trusted a cassette ever again. So I just started writing it all out. But then, of course, the next time I wanted to try the program out, I'd have to write it again.
Man.
And then
That's
and it would never
a lot of
work.
patience there just to get your program.
Yeah. It sucked. It sucked so bad.
Wow.
So, but I much preferred using our Mac, obviously, and I would spend like hours mostly drawing on it in Super Paint, and like really like, I think I dug into every feature of the paint layer of Super Paint. The draw layer, I just didn't understand what that was about at all. Sorry, I'm just wittering off onto something else now. My brain's like, let's talk about Super Paint.
This is exactly how my mind works. So it's sort of scary. But I do want to popularize or share, or whatever the word is, your Instagram, because that's how I met you virtually. And so James's Instagram is Hypertalking, so you could do your favorite search engine and find that out. But talk a little bit about, just briefly, and then we'll get back onto cassettes and Super Paint, about about how, when did you start that? What was sort of, the reason behind that, and
So I think I started that probably about five-ish years ago. I was basically like living on my own with my cat, and I didn't really have much else to do, and I'd already started a year or two before that, I'd already started sort of the old computers had started to collect again, because basically I bought my own place for the first time in like 2012, and then I was like, oh, I've got room for things, and of course that's very dangerous when you're a collector, when you realise you've got some space, and so I think I'd had a few Macs back at my parents', and I went and got them, and then some more ones came, and then basically I think I was just like, it sort of felt weird having it all to myself in a way, and just tinkering with it by myself, and I think maybe I'd started talking about it on my personal Instagram with my friends, and I think I thought maybe my friends are getting a bit fed up with this because they're not really into this as much as me. So it was really basically I split it off. I split off something I was already doing onto a separate Instagram, and I wanted to keep my personal one private. And I was like, well, there's no reason to not make this public. And then I started following other people, and then it was just, what was nice was I discovered all these other people. I mean, I already knew there were lots of other people doing it because I've been on forums like 68K MLA for like a couple of decades. I've been on there since like 2000 and something. Yeah. And
how many server migrations has that been? You know. I don't think I had posts from any of the problematic migrations where everything got lost. But so I've been on. I knew everyone was around, and started following all that, and I just started sharing stuff. And it was also when I started to decide that I was going to restore computers as well. I could see that things were going badly for things that were like 30 years old or so. Like, I was like no one else is going to fix my capacitors for me. I'm going to have to learn this. So I started going like YouTube and doing that kind of thing. And I was like, I thought I might as well share what I'm doing. I don't even know why I started sharing fixing stuff. I just thought no one's going to care about this. And then you have some great chats talking about capacitors and like, oh, what technique do you use? Yeah, and that's how you learn. I mean, yeah.
And I think it's a shared experience thing. I think it's a shared experience of not just the collecting, but all the other parts of it, like the restoration. And I think, it's the same as classic cars or furniture or, I don't know, crockery or something. There are people who collect and restore all of these things. And I think there's some innate human thing. And it just so happens that we've got the computer version. In fact, I had a builder come round, and he made a comment about this room. And I said, look, you know those people that leave cars on their front lawn for like a decade or something, like, and they're fixing them. Like that's what I do. Like,
yeah, I could just turn around and the fix. Yeah. So your username is Hypertalking. Does that derive from Hypertalk or Hypercard or?
Yeah. So we should really do, like, I'm sure we'll be doing a little bit of a tour of this room later on. But down there, I can see a shelf where like 2/3 of the shelf is just copies of Hypercard. I mean, basically, so when I was about 12, 13, like obviously Hypercard came free with every Mac in the early 90s. That's what Bill Atkinson demanded it. That was he said, I'm going to stay at Apple if you give Hypercard away for free with every Mac. And so that's what they did. And of course, being a kid with no money, like it was only the applications that my parents got and this free one that came with a computer.
Oh, yeah, and that's what you're going to use.
And so it was way better than BASIC. I was like, wow, I can so we've got to be careful because we'll go off down another tangent. But I used to make graphical adventures, like tons of graphical adventures, sometimes like super like fantasy ones where like you'd explore islands and go underground and in buildings and everything, like the worst version of Myst you could ever imagine. But then I would do ones where like it was like my home and stuff like that. And then I got into, so it was a combination of like drawing, I guess, sort of pixely art in Superpaint and doing Hypercard stuff. And I absolutely loved Hypercard, and I programmed all sorts of stuff in it, and I started making games for friends of mine and stuff like that, like all sorts. So yeah, so the hyper talking handle was basically, I was like trying to think of a name, and I was like, well, what am I into that maybe is a bit of a nod to my obsession? And I was like, well, Hypertalk is the language that was created for Hypercard, which is a really nice, easy language programming, very slow, but very easy to program. And I tried Hypertalk, and of course that had gone everywhere. And I was like, well, I'm kind of a hyperactive kind of person, and I don't know when to stop talking. So it all just adds up. Like hyper talking, great, let's do it.
That's awesome.
You know, the domain was there and the handles. So yeah, yeah.
As I knock over my water bottle with my foot, it's okay. The lid was on.
We're professionals.
Yes,
this is what we do.
Very, very professional. Yes, but awesome. Yeah. So I think that's how I found you, was on Instagram. But that's how I started with my Instagram too. I started sharing geeky things of my phone or my iPod or my Mac, and it sort of became one of these things where I was talking to my friends once and talking about my Instagram, and we were joking that like it's half of my pets and half of my computers, so it's like, that's all that was there. So I said, well, this is 2017 when I started the whole Mac 84 thing, so that it started on Instagram, and then I eventually evolved into a YouTube thing. But it's amazing because like I found yourself there's so many people that I've met through Instagram, not only in the US, but when I visited Japan, I met up with some amazing people there just because I found them on Instagram, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And I mean, you think you have a collection, or that you are good at preparing something, or you have this talent or whatever, and then it just opens your eyes to like, wow, that guy does that better than me, or that guy has something cool that, and of course it's just like, you take the best photo and you do the lighting all right, but me, I'm not that fancy, so I just like take the picture of something. But there are some of these accounts on there which are just fantastic, of just like portraits of these computers, and I know some of them are like old press photos from the past that just have very great lighting. But it's really cool that we're part of this community, whether it's on Instagram or on Facebook or on YouTube, where all these folks have like minds like that are just obsessed with these old computers for one reason or another. I don't think there's a cure, unfortunately, but it's not too bad.
I work with a really good friend of mine. We both run this small company, and I remember being quite like sort of shy about my interest. And she definitely convinced me that I should just be like totally lean into it, just go with it. She was like, "It's what you enjoy. Just like, you don't need to feel strange about it or anything. Like that's just a thing you do, and you enjoy it. And why should you care what other people think, really?"
Yeah.
And I think
it's nothing to be ashamed
she's
about.
Totally right. Like, exactly. I mean, it's a bit silly in lots of ways, but at the same time, I think everyone has something they do that they feel maybe is a bit silly, or that isn't something that everyone else does. And I think it's the same, like you're into a sport or some other hobby, and I think it's all good, but it's much more fun when you can find other people who are into the same kind of thing as well, because you just learn so much more. And I think for me, I bang on about this a lot, but really for me, like the thing I enjoy the most is kind of the history and learning about the people who were involved at the time in creating things, and the kind of context, like what was happening in the world. Like, why did this computer get designed in this way? Like, what was it because what was possible, or what people thought was the best thing to do? Like, why was it marketed that way? I absolutely love all of that. Like, I don't want just like a computer in front of me that I'm fixing up. I want to understand everything about why it existed and how it was used and who used it, and like meet the people who used it and read about all that kind of context. And that's for me, that's like the other really big part of this for me, is like really understanding that history. So like people who do YouTube documentaries about history of stuff, I mean, I just lap that stuff up. Absolutely love it, but also love reading all the books and everything. I mean, I've got a lot less time to do that these days, but still absolutely love it all. Like, there's so many people doing the history of it out there as well, and doing such a great job. It's kind of a real mix of things.
Yeah, and it's so surprising because we talked about this a bit when we were chatting before, but especially with the history of computers, there is so much that is documented, but then there's so much probably, let's say, from sometime in the mid 90s until present, that it has yet to be documented, or has yet to be documented in a certain way. And so it's things like that that I find so interesting, because there was just this boom from the late 80s to the early 2000s of just, and beyond that, of just so many companies, so many products, so many failed ventures, all this stuff that just like, there was so much of it that it was impossible to keep all of this in mind. And then all of a sudden, it disappears, and who's around to tell that story? And it's things like that that I think I'm most interested in, the weird things about the Mac clones and all that stuff, which I, of course, spent most of my YouTube career looking at now, and all these other things that it's so fascinating to think about. And I think that the more people that are preserving this stuff, either scanning in articles or digitizing tapes or software or anything like that, the more that it sort of cements that story. And while these people are still around that worked at these companies or did this or that, it's one of those things that you have to take the advantage of to preserve. And I know some stories and you know some stories, so I think it's a good thing to sort of cement each other's experiences and share what we know.
Totally. And the reason I was looking away from you there, looking around, is because because I remember something that I wanted to show you on the clones thing, which is well, actually, there's a couple of things. I got some slightly crappy old
just slightly crappy,
I guess, like just like old like like dealer kind of catalogs the other day, and it has it's from just the right era, like 96, 97, and so it's got a bunch of UMAC stuff in it, and it's got your
cool.
APUS in it.
Oh, nice.
But what I thought was also interesting was that it's got Super Pulsar, which of course, we've got
there you go.
a Pulsar back there. But then it also had advertised in it the Pulsar 750, which was, I guess, the 750 was the G3 chip, right? That's right.
Yeah,
PowerPC 750. Is that right?
The 750 series was the G3 chip, if I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's advertised in there, and I hadn't really realised that had like been for sale, right? And so that, I mean, maybe they were, maybe they jumped the gun and they thought they were going to get them for sale and never actually happened.
I know that Motorola had were teasing that they had like what would be called the G3 chip, and Steve Jobs pulled the plug right before that. Yeah, sure, go grab it.
These are these.
Oh, those are fantastic. Here, let me put you full screen, because for some reason the video keeps changing how it wants to go.
Oh yeah, I've got mini.
Yeah, it's just me not knowing what I'm doing.
Oh, I don't know either.
That's awesome.
So let me find the page, because I found it a couple of days ago and I thought Steve would like that.
That is cool.
And the other thing I was looking for was the Japanese catalog I told you, which was all the Pioneer clones.
Oh yeah.
Which I'll have to find in a sec. Oh yeah, here we go. So there's the APUS.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
That is awesome.
And then here we've got the Pulsar page, and if you look here, new UMAX Super Pulsar 750.
Ah.
So that is
yeah, definitely wasn't 750 megahertz.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that meant 750 chip, which is the G3. If I'm right.
Yeah, no.
Maybe someone in the chat knows more than me.
The smart people in the chat will correct us immediately when we slightly misconstrued the past.
Yeah.
And we have Ken from the Computer Clan here. Hello, Ken. And we have almost 50 people watching, so we have quite an audience here.
Whoa, that is a lot.
And Sean from
That's
Action
more people
Retro.
that can fit in this room.
Yeah, exactly. We're virtually social distancing here, so it's okay that there's 50 of us here.
Shall I show you some other crap that came in the post with the same thing?
Why the heck not?
Just quickly.
Take your time.
Mail call. Quick mail call. There you go, look. This is a thing I told you about.
Oh, wow. Kids World.
So Apple World magazine. Yeah, I think it's like a bunch of kids reviewing software and saying whether it's good or crap. There's like, oh yeah, and they had a bit at the back which was it was like I think it was like Apple Fellows or something. Yes, it is. Apple Fellows. So look, this is quite a fun page. Look, it's got Guy Kawasaki,
Oh wow.
Steve Capps, a bunch of other people.
It's great to see those photos too, because that's like the only place you could see those photos, other than like the one or two circulated
Yeah.
around, you know.
And I think it's sort of, oh yeah, look, the article's called The A-Team.
That's cool.
But so yeah, and that was, and then like I got a bunch of, you know, when we were talking the other day, Steve, we were talking about like kind of funny, sort of obscure publications that sort of existed in the world of stuff, Macs in the 90s, and obviously pre the web. This is how you got your news. So you got like dealer newsletters and stuff. Like you signed up to a dealer newsletter,
cool.
and I got a whole stack of these. Look at this. It's basic. I mean, it's just trash, isn't it? Really. But
Oh, it's good trash, though. I mean,
but it's where you find the little obscure historical stories that you just don't find anywhere else.
yeah, because we were talking about, and I have some of them on the Internet Archive. I'll pull up the page while you're full screen here. That I have a few of these newsletters from Apple called Applegrams. And I never really saw many of them online or anything like that. So I started to scan some of them in, and there are fantastic dives into just, you know, what Apple was doing at the time. And there was some news in there about like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, etc. So yeah, James and I have tons of scanning and digitizing to do whenever time allows. Trust me.
more time than I ever got. And there's Adobe Magazine issue 1. British edition, of course, very important. It's the British edition. It means that I'll be able to understand it when I read it.
That is cool.
I haven't actually looked in this at all. I haven't read that at all yet. I haven't had time. These came like literally a couple of days ago. I'll put those back. But yeah, so like that's the kind of rubbish that I collect. I've got shelves full of all these magazines and.
Well, to me, it's not rubbish, so don't worry.
And sort of funny newsletters. No, this is the thing. Like, you know, when you read a series of like newsletters or magazines from like, you know, 30 years ago, what I like is that I can sort of exist in that era for that time, and sort of like, and each issue, like things are moved on a couple times, and they'll be like, oh yeah, now they're going to release this thing called Macintosh Classic, or you know, the Quadra series. It uses a blazing fast 040, and you're like, wow, and it's so exciting. Like you suddenly feel like you're in the context of the time, which I find really enjoyable.
Yeah, it really just takes you back. It just, you know, you were transported into that era where you didn't. I mean, look, right now you could go online, you go to these websites that are fantastic. You know, you go to Every Mac, Low End Mac. You could read the history of these systems, when they came out, you know, why they came out, etc. But like back then, it was happening, and there was all these rumors of, oh, Apple might do this, Apple might do that, and they were such a secretive company. They still are a secretive company. That I think that's what made it so fun about those magazines you used to get. You know, I have like a Macworld here, and this is all, you know, about the G5. You know, but like, wow. You know, this was for, you know. That was like, okay, the G5 is out, but you know, before that, it was all these rumors of like a dual core G4. There's a quad core one coming out, or a quad processor rather, because they weren't doing cores. But you know, it's insanity. It's just so cool. And when you look back at that stuff, it's really funny to read, because you will find things that, you know, maybe started as a rumor, and then, you know, 10 years later or 20 years later, it's cited as a Wikipedia source, and then you look back and like, no, that's just the guy's opinion. Yeah, that's not. But you see that like repeated on websites, because it's really funny. When I was doing the clone video stuff and just looking back and trying to find information, it was so easy to like find one sentence about, oh, they sold X amount of units or whatever the fact was. And you could trace that by like finding the exact text back to like some article from like 1996 in a newspaper, where the guy says it was reported that they may have sold this much, but the context is lost over the years. So it's like, you gotta be careful, but it's still, you know, fantastic to read that stuff. It just, I don't know, makes me all happy.
It is. I think part of the enjoyment is as well, it's sort of similar to that. I think is like seeing or being reminded of the perception that people had about stuff. And you know, we're looking back at it from now, and it's so easy to forget how it felt at the time for like new things to appear, or or it sort of felt harder to understand if something was going to succeed or not, and all these kind of things. Like the context seemed a lot more complicated. And like also in the UK, growing up in the UK, we had no idea what was going on in the US. Like it was very well, not no idea, but it was very difficult. You relied on magazines that had a reporter out there or something like that.
Yeah.
And also, most of the time, everyone was just complaining that all Apple stuff cost twice as much here as it did in the States. So everyone was very frustrated by that.
So you're getting a lot of comments of the lovely things in your shelves, and don't worry, guys, we will be getting to some of the Sun stuff and some of the next stuff, and
oh yeah,
and don't worry, we got some time, and but you started talking a little bit about something, and we could go into it now, or we could go into it later, but you mentioned to me about obviously that things were sold at different prices over in your side of the world. And there were some, let's say, innovative individuals who decided to take advantage of some shipping practices. Do you want to tell us some stuff about that?
Yeah. I don't know exactly when it started, but this is a good example of like the kind of funny, interesting little newsletters and things that I've got. Is that I've got this one from, there was a big UK Macintosh user group, and they had their own publication called something like the Mac Times or something, and they document this in great detail from the beginning. And I think it starts right at the beginning of the 90s, maybe the late 80s, but right at the beginning of the 90s, where basically this thing called grey importing started happening. Okay. And this was because the I guess it was the profit margin that Apple put on Macs in the UK and maybe all of Europe was much heftier than in the US. And so basically people figured out they could go to the US, buy up in bulk, I guess, like hundreds or thousands of Macs, I don't know, and then ship them over and sell them over here and still make a profit, right? And yeah, it was called grey importing because obviously I don't think it was illegal, but Apple certainly weren't happy about it at all. And yeah, there were loads of sort of fly-by-night companies where people would like buy their Mac and then have no support because the company folded, and presumably they didn't care if they folded because they'd made their money, right? They shipped over, and it was done with software as well. And actually, I don't want to like get my parents in trouble or anything, but
I think the period of that is past. You're okay.
Yeah, but our copy of Super Paint is definitely a grey import because this is the copy of Super Paint that I had when I was a kid.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or my family had, and you can see here, it's definitely not meant to have been sold in the UK.
Maybe, just potentially.
So,
it depends on how you read that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that is awesome.
So yeah. And I'm pretty sure we had like Microsoft Office in the same way, and maybe some other stuff.
I mean,
there you go. But yeah, it was the same for software too.
Yeah, and I'm sure in other countries it was like that. You know, and as Sean is saying in the chat, the sticker is just a suggestion. You know, you don't know how the sticker got in the box. You know, somebody at the factory was just messing with you. That's all. Yeah. I always wondered because I have software that had that sticker on it, and it was only until we were talking a few days ago. And you mentioned that, and I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. It's not like it wouldn't run. It's just, you know, for their import practices or whatever, they didn't want to share that particular version at that price or whatever. So that's really silly. So
yeah,
that's just, I mean, more power to whoever bought a Mac cheaper, I guess, if they could not afford it otherwise. So bad on Apple for doubling the prices.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous because I think people did the calculations, you know, and it clearly wasn't just tax. And I think people were still complaining about this even like 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And I think there might still be a little bit of price disparity, but I was coming over to New York quite a lot a few years ago for work. And I think I was going to buy an Apple TV in the Apple store there. And I realized that actually it was pretty much the same price in the UK. So I just didn't bother. So it's not as bad as it was, but it used to be very bad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, so we're getting some comments about your fantastic boxes there. So is there anything on that shelf, and feel free to elaborate as much as you want, but that Quadra 605 sticks out also. Is there anything on that shelf that you are particularly proud of? And you don't have to just pick one, but you have quite the box software collection, which is very impressive because when I have software, it's usually just the disc if I'm lucky. but you have some nice speakers there. You have a Throwboy pillow there. You have the Spectre boxes and the Marathon boxes and all these goodies that people are probably drooling in the chat over right now. But but yeah, tell us a bit about how that started. I guess did you always have the box stuff, or was that like a recent type thing?
So that is a really good question. I still had I guess I had like my family software, like the Super 8 I showed you, and then I had one or two games. Like my brother's friend gave me his copy of SimCity when I was a kid. I guess he felt like he was too old for it or something. And what else did I have that was? And I think I had a boxed Hypercard, and that was like kind of. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I think that was probably kind of it until like five-ish years ago. And then it was basically, I think it was trying to find software that I'd wanted when I was a kid. And like it wasn't always on Macintosh Garden, because somehow I'd ended up with like desire for really, really obscure stuff. And then also like wanting to have that experience of like, well, what is it really like to kind of unpack it, read the instructions, install it, and also again, from that historical point of view of like knowing that I'm understanding what's going on with things. But then some stuff, but then the problem is that then the sort of obsession kicks in, right? And so
what obsession? I don't know anything about obsession.
Once I realized that there was an interesting series of objects to collect, so like I'm like, maybe I need to get every Maxis game, maybe I need every Marathon, maybe I need every Spectre. Maybe I need every Colin Kindersley multimedia title.
You're saying these like they're optional things. These are requirements. So and like I'm trying to collect all of Voyager Company's early multimedia stuff, which before CD-ROMs they did laser discs and they did floppy disks. Like, I did this great thing called the expanded books that are like floppy disks, and I've got Alice in Wonderland and I've got a Hitchhiker's Guide, and I can't find any others. But like partly because I think the problem is as well, the hunt is part of the fun, and I'm like, if I could just get that one, then I've got all of them. And this is like the classic collector problem, right? You're like, oh, so like. I'm looking here. You can't see this, but I've got all early Apple Macintosh software where, so you've got Mac Paint and Mac Draw and Mac Terminal and Mac Write, all the early stuff. And you can see the sequence of the catalog numbers along the bottom of them. That's
so
cool.
Like I can, and you're like, I just want the whole series of numbers. You're like, what's the thing in between, what can I see here? What's the thing that's in between, 235 and 236? I don't know. Now I've got to find out.
Yeah, and
like, that's
did like
problem,
somebody
right?
just like fall asleep at the numbering station or what?
Yeah, and you're like, what's the and then it's just this like really it's such a terrible like emotion of like, oh, I just want this like neat consistency, or this, you see patterns in things and you want to like complete the pattern or whatever. And it's there's definitely a problem there. Like, I mean, I can see I've got two Mac OS 9s in box.
Oh, that's
because cool. One says featuring Sherlock 2, and one says featuring iTools. So they're completely different, obviously. That's very important to have both.
I don't think I have any version of OS 9 box. I think the only retail copy I had of 9 was the one that came with Jaguar here in the US, but that's I think we just had it. It came on my father's machine, so that was just like what we had.
I have boxed every single boxed copy of Mac OS from 5, which was the first one that they put in the box, up to the first version of Mac OS 10.
Wow, that's cool.
Which is and that's where I stop. I do like. I know that it's like a bit all over the place, but I do try. They're not rules because I break them, but I do have some guidelines to try and like curb the problem. And that is like OS 10 stuff I generally don't collect, but and I generally try to stop. In terms of hardware, I don't really go past 1995 very much. Mm-hmm. It's only that pulsar I could not resist.
Yeah,
and I don't know if anyone spotted it because I'm sitting here, but I can move my camera. There's a couple of B boxes there, and then 1996.
Oh wow.
But otherwise, and the Pippin is 96, of course, as well.
Yeah, the more you look at your shelf, the more goodies I see.
Yeah. I mean, you were asking like about some of my favorite things, and I completely just like
No,
went
no,
off some.
that's
I
fine.
mean, one of one of my special things to me is my original quick cam, which is there's two quick cams up here. I think it's this one here, and like I'll show you something I made on it. So like, well, I got my quick cam when I was 15 or 16.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saved up for it, and I had just discovered art. And I studied art at school when I was in my teens, and I was really into it. And one of the projects was a kind of piece. You had to do a sort of autobiographical piece, and this isn't what the piece was, but this was like kind of a little study for it. And because I was trying to understand, I was trying to explore the human form was kind of the brief in some way. And I did this little study, and this is like a little flip book that I made really badly. But if you can see, this is me aged like 16 or something, and I'm like spinning around in the chair. It's really
And you
difficult
made
to
that
show
with your quick cam.
flipping. But that's my quick cam, and I still got this little. Why do I keep it? I've had this like
That's fantastic, though. That's
25 years.
That's what I wish I had. I had more of. Is let me just. Yeah, sorry, your window keeps shrinking. It's not your fault. It's my fault. There we go. Maybe. Oh, now you're shrunken a different way. Oh, the lovelies of technology. Wow, there we go. So with that flipbook though, that's cool because that's like a personal artifact that's only yours, and it ties into technology also. But could you hold that up again? Maybe if you flip it towards us, I don't know if that would present better.
It's because the problem is that I bound it wrong.
Oh, so
okay. To like flip it. Yeah, you see, like I clearly hadn't figured out how flip books work because it meant to do it the other way.
Oh, no worries.
So it's kind of like.
Okay, we can see it now.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I'm sorry.
What you could do is you could scan it in.
Look at that teenager's face. Like, cheer up, mate. Cheer up. Come on.
You'll get that Mac one day. Don't worry. Cheer up. Oh boy. That's a really unique piece. That's really cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. In terms of collecting, I mean, marathon was something I wanted. I used to play marathon all the time when I was a kid. I think it was Durandal. I think Durandal was the first one that came with an editor, so you could change stuff. And I remember basically I did what probably everyone did was I made the machine guns into you could shoot shotgun rounds out of them, so you could destroy anything. And of course. Turned off gravity and made it so I could bounce around all over the place. And so I loved. Marathon scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Like that noise that the aliens made. That I mean, if I heard that noise in real life, I'd have a heart attack.
When it was dark. Yeah, it was dark. You couldn't see where you were going, and you just hear the noise.
Yeah, so I couldn't really play the game because I was too scared, but I loved playing it on LAN. Oh yeah, so here's let's go off down a little path. Sure. I had one friend at school that had a Mac besides me, and I had saved up and bought a 6100, the first Power Mac. I think it was like when they were just becoming obsolete, and so I'd saved up and got one. And we can talk about that more in detail later. But basically, I would get he had his dad's Quadra 700, which I thought was amazing. I was like, wow! And so I would get my dad to drive me around to my friend's house with my Quadra 6100, my Power Mac 6100, my massive screen. But it was like the worst screen. It was one of his Performer.
Oh yeah, the
screen,
Performer
14 inch. It was like a goldfish. It was like a goldfish bowl. It was so
640
bad.
by 480.
I had to return the first two because they didn't even work. Quite Michael Spindler problem, I think.
Yeah.
And
just blame it on him.
And so everyone does, right? And it's fine. I'm pretty sure it's true. So yeah, I would get my dad to drive me around with it, and we would, and then we'd spend like the afternoon, evening with like on a little LAN, just the two of us, and we'd play Marathon. And we would play Avara. Do you remember Avara is quite obscure? It's an Ambrosia software game.
How is it spelled? I'm going to Google it.
Avara.
Let's see.
And it was an Ambrosia game, but it was all 3D polygons, and it ran so badly.
I've seen this. I've never played it before, but I've seen it. Well, now with the modern collection, we could do a LAN if you want.
Yeah, we should. Should we get on? I have no idea how Twitch works. Should we Twitch stream Avara? I don't know what I'm talking about because I've gone massive on on your stream.
Yeah,
you've gone right into my face.
This is just the professionalism that Mac84 brings to the table. So
I love it. I love it. So yeah, no, marathon's got to be a favorite. Okay, so the Spectre boxes. I loved Spectre when I was a kid. Absolutely loved it. And coming across the boxes was like just so exciting. And then and then obviously I found the first one, which I think is the Spectre VR on the right. This was the first one I found, and this was sealed. And people kept selling them sealed. I couldn't believe it.
Wow, that's cool.
And of course they're designed to look like one of the tanks in the game. I think that's the point. And so I
never thought of that. That's why they were designed like that. I just thought some guy was having fun with the boxes.
No, I'm pretty sure there's an article out there on the web interviewing someone at what were they called? Velocity, about it, and all the shops absolutely hated them because they couldn't get the boxes to stay on the shelves. And then Spectre Supreme had the exact same box, but like, different coloring. This one's still sealed as well. I will, by the way, I'm not a steel sealed type of person. I fully intend, if I ever have the time, to undo these on video somehow. Ooh. But maybe it would be one of your live streams or something.
There we go. But I think that'll draw the crowd alone.
I have a lot of sealed software, and I have no problem unsealing it. I just don't want it to be. I want it to be recorded so that people can see what was originally in the box and was meant to be there. Because the only thing that I think is useful about sealed is you'll know what was genuinely in the original article. You won't be guessing, right? And then this is the original Spectre box. Which, how cool is that?
I have. I don't know where it is. I have one of those. It's quite beat up, but yours is in much better condition. And mine has a sticker somewhere, I think on the back, and that's what always interests.
And it opens like this.
That's so cool. It's like is what always interests me about boxes and stuff is when you'll see like a sticker and it'll be over something and you're like, well, what were they covering up? What was the and so you want to peel it off, but you don't want to rip the sticker. But you're trying to figure out, did the system requirements change? Was there a typo? What was going on?
Yeah, and I think again that comes back to that sort of history and context of like, what was going on at the time, what was it really like to experience these things and all that kind of stuff. And I think, and then it's sort of fun pretending that you've just got a brand new piece of software, right?
Oh yeah,
and
that's what I do on my. I mean, just reliving and pretending I'm back in wherever the time period was is I think what I'm all about, and what your Instagram is about too.
I'm trying to think of other fun things. So other things that I was excited to collect. This took a while to find at a good price. These sell for silly money usually. So I think this is the only game that Apple have ever actually published. Is that right? Is the only one they've published? I know they've released games, but like from themselves, developed and published, because Steve Capps made this. And what's fun about it is in the artwork on the front, there's pixel art, which I can't remember now who made it, whether it was Susan Kerr or someone else. But anyway, maybe it was Steve Capps actually. There's loads of like hidden messages in the art. And one of them is his favorite band was Dead Kennedys. And I'm pretty sure that there's like a Dead Kennedys reference in, I think it's really hard to see, but I think that says something there. It's really difficult to show you on camera, but
that's really cool.
He put loads of little messages in there. And of course, this is made to look like a book because it was like Alice in Wonderland, and they couldn't call it Alice in Wonderland, I think because of copyright or something, so they just called it Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah, see, I always knew it as Alice, but I always forgot that was not the original title, the official title.
Yeah.
Oh, that is cool.
But yeah, I mean, it is really beautiful. I mean, all the way down to this like nice little sort of bookmark for helping you pull the disc out, right?
Oh, that's cool.
And it's just and inside there that is felt in there.
Now that is
It's
Apple
just
packaging to an
ridiculous.
extreme. You think that they're fancy with their Apple
Yeah,
watches? Go back to Alice. That
yeah,
is really cool. That is awesome. I've never
so
seen
good.
one. You know, I've seen some photos, but I never saw like how it opens and how the disc comes out and everything.
Well, this is the thing, like, and I think I'm not. Yes, this collection is kind of like, slightly obsessive. I want to experience all these things,
Only
but it's
slightly.
not meant
Only
as a kind
slightly.
of, but it's not meant as like a sort of selfish. Um, I want to keep this all to myself, and no one else can have it. Like before pandemic, I would invite people to come round and show them anything, and like part of the joy of this is sharing
Yeah.
it, and like that's also what's important about my Instagram. I don't put the things on Instagram to be like, oh, look at me, look what I've hoarded together. I really want to like share it, and if people ask me questions about it, I'll share more, or tell them what I know about it, or whatever. And in the same way that I want to learn about the history and learn about the interesting stories and bits and bobs, is I want to share what I know as well. And like
Yeah.
I've gathered a whole heap of crap in my brain, and I think some of it's interesting for people, right? And I think so. That's the thing. Like, more opportunities. Like doing this with you is really about sort of saying like, come in, see my stuff. I would run a museum if I had the time, I could be bothered,
Yeah.
etc. Like when I was a kid, I actually really loved the idea of working in a museum or a library, and I would totally be up for doing something like that one day. Not for a long time, but until then, like the great thing about Instagram and YouTube and all these other things is you can do that sharing.
Yeah.
So and I would love to do more. And I think I said this to you the other day. Like if we have to we can just keep doing this, because there's like over 1,000 things in this room, and I could probably talk for about an hour about every single thing. So that's 1,000 hours.
And I didn't say no.
Just
So a few people in the chat were Trina in the chat. She's a long time watcher, and I think she had to run off for something. But she was saying, "This is gonna be a weekly thing, right?" It's just like we'll keep on doing it, because I know everyone in the chat's enjoying themselves. I'm having a blast. But I want to take.
Me too.
Well, I'm glad. I want to steer us sort of in the direction, because you were talking about some of your pieces there, and
yeah,
I want to sort of get your opinion, because here in the United States the prices of these things have been silly, and so my history of this stuff is I grew up with the family computer. We had a Macintosh 2CX. And my father was always, into yard sales and stuff like that before I was even born. And so naturally I was into computers because he had a computer, and that's sort of how I got hooked. And back in the late 90s and the early 90s, or, that period of time, at least where I was, most of the Apple stuff people didn't want. It was undervalued for what it was. And it was just this stuff that was like unwanted. So I would go to a yard sale. There would be cables or books or computers, and Apple wasn't doing too well, so people sort of dismissed them, and they were like, whatever, it's a Mac, I don't want it anymore, or whatever. And a lot of this stuff would just find its way out cheap. And so I sort of grew up with that, spoiled, because that was what I was used to.
Yeah.
And as I grew up, I met some friends who were also as dorky as I am, so that was great, because you realize you're not broken. There's other people out there like you. And I used to go to flea markets, computer festivals that had sale rooms, and it was all PC stuff. And whenever there was an Apple thing, it was either by accident or somebody didn't want it. So I remember getting an airport card back when they were still $70 or $80 for $20, because the guy didn't know what it was and he didn't care about it. I got this Mac in a bag here. It's a 512K for $20.
Nice.
And the guy's condition was you have to take the image writer printer with it. Yeah. So that's what I was used to. But I mean, and I'm sure your experience is the same, and we'll get to what you experience over in your area in a second. But how I want to set up this is, I'm part of a podcast group. We're called the Mac Yak Podcast, and we have this term called the eBay effect, and we didn't invent it, but essentially, as these things have Apple has become a healthier company. Anybody who sees an Apple logo on something instantly now assumes that is rare, that is worth money.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that they made millions of these things. And so, it sort of has ballooned, and then you get these people who are finding something, they're clearing out somebody's attic, and they go to sell something. Obviously, they go to eBay, because that's one of the well-known things out there. And people mistake an asking price for a sold price, and they get inflated, and that sort of has a trickle-down effect, because one person will buy this for an insane amount, and now that rises the bar of the expectation for everything else. And collecting anything right now with Apple has started to get a little bit silly. There's definitely some corners of the internet where you see people post things for sale, whether it's on Facebook or eBay, and you would have to be a billionaire to afford half of this stuff. So I want your opinion on sort of, when you started collecting this stuff, what did you sort of see as the market, and how that has changed over the years, and if you're seeing the same silly prices that we're seeing over here?
Yeah. So to your story about the $20 512K, I mean, my brother pulled a Macintosh Plus out of a skip at the university he was at in the very early 2000s and gave me that.
Wow.
So that cost nothing. And then I think I told you the other day, I was at a big fair, like electronics fair thing, and picked up an Apple IIgs with multiple floppy drives, a monitor, keyboard, mouse, and the keyboard alone now sells for like some stupid money, $75 to $100. And I got that all for £5. But that was in like 1997 or 8, something like that. And then and I sold that for like 400 quid or something.
That's a bit of a profit
on eBay.
Just a bit.
Yeah, and I didn't. I wasn't even like being greedy. I just put it up on eBay, and that's what it got to. And then it's definitely really varied, because I mean I've got 2 color classics, and one I got for like 99p just because no one else bid on it.
But how many years ago was that?
That was probably 5 or 6 years ago, okay. I think. I was pretty surprised.
That's still good though. I would have guessed that would have had to be at least 10 years ago.
They were selling for like £100 then, maybe more, maybe 150, maybe even more than that. And I mean, I've still got like, I've got some of the Macs from when I was a kid that I'd had around. What else? I mean, I've had some good deals, but it's usually like I do buy things straight off eBay, but also it's about getting into communities, right? Or it's a bit of like sleuthing. So
yeah,
I got 2 stories on that count.
Sure.
2 stories on that count. So I've got look, I'll just turn my camera around and you can see.
Yes, please.
There's my Lisa 2.
My goodness.
There we go. Which I fully restored and is very happy now, including the keyboard, which is quite an interesting restoration. Don't recommend that. But I got a pair of those for £600.
Wow.
Pair of these 2, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. And neither of them were properly working, and I fixed up one fully. The other one I half fixed up and passed on to another collector that I know. But that is because the chap selling it had started to sell his collection, and he'd started with like just brochures, and that I bought a bunch of Lisa brochures off him, and then he said, "Oh, I've got a few more things," and I was like, "Yes, please." And like basically, I always ask people what else they're thinking about selling.
Oh yeah, that's an excellent thing to do.
Yeah, and you always end up finding stuff. And if you are if you behave decently and come across decently and are polite and are open and are honest, you can get some really good deals still, I think. Like, you just have good chats with people, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? You seem like the kind of person that would look after my computer. Like, I want it to go to a good home." I mean, it sounds mad. It sounds like, because it's not an alive thing. But like, I appreciate that too, because I've sold on a lot of computers, because I've always got more than I was going to say need. Obviously, I've got more than I need. I don't need any of this, but I've got more than I want. And I always try and find people to take it off my hands who I think are going to have a good appreciation for it. If it needs work, they're going to work on it. Or if they just are getting into the game, like, you know, I make sure, like, you know, do you know what you're getting into? And like that sort of thing. And I think that's just really important. I think it's just about behaving well. And yeah, so, and then the other pretty amazing deal I got was my B boxes, and I got the pair for, well, I won't say how much, but it was a steal.
Wow.
And that was only last year.
Oh wow.
And that was because there was a chap on Instagram who follows me, who's a very nice chap, and I think he'd taken a picture of something he had, like maybe some software, and it was some like B software. And I just started chatting away to him. And then he was like, oh yeah, I've got these B boxes. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he was like, yeah, I'm sort of kind of deciding what to do with them. And I just said, well, I'd be very interested. And what's amazing is not only did he have these two B boxes, which are, they only did 2 production runs of, they did the 66 megahertz, which are a different color scheme, and they did these, which are the 133 megahertz dual processor 603s.
Oh wow!
But before the PowerPC B boxes, there was this one that they call the Hobbit prototypes, and there were these prototypes, and they're called that because it was run on an AT&T processor called the Hobbit. And they only switched to PowerPC because AT&T basically said, we're not going to make these anymore. And he has one of those as well. So he has one of those, and they are ludicrously rare, but he didn't want to let that go, which I was fine with, because I was like, I've just got 2 B boxes. Like, this is like super amazing. One of them works fine. The other one's dead. It worked for a while, and I'm pretty sure I know what's wrong with it, but I haven't had any time to fix it up. I think it's dry joints, but
yeah, that's the thing. Like, you know, if somebody doesn't have the time to put into restoring this stuff, I mean, either one of us could easily get overwhelmed with restoring a computer or whatever, and then, you know, sort of be fed up with it, and you want something else, but you don't have the space, you trade or something like that. So it's what you were saying about being nice, being friendly, going and just being honest with people, I find is the absolute best way to deal with people, because you could try and sneak something past somebody. You can try and say, oh, it's not worth this or that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all part of negotiation. But I found whenever I am trying to act interested in something, I don't have to act, because it's like, look, that's cool. I'm going to temper my behavior, because I'm not going to be like, oh my god, that's so cool. And the guy's like, well, if you're that interested in it, you give me double the price, you know? But yeah, I mean, the story of you getting those machines reminds me of, you know, because you asked what else do you have. I was getting this studio display monitor, the 15-inch monitor, the LCD that went with the Power Mac G3. So the blue and white one that's there. And so it's on another shelf, but it was one of those things where it was on Facebook Marketplace. The only way to contact the person was to use the messaging application built into their platform. So I sent the guy a message. He had it listed for $20, and I'm like, I've been looking for one of these things for ages. And weeks went by, no response. I finally got a response, and it was a phone number. He said, call me. I call the number. It's some line that's not attended to. And so, you know, this goes on, and eventually I'm sitting in my office one weekend at home, and I'm like, let me just call that number again. And some guy's mother picks up and is like, oh no, you have to call this number. And I'm like, okay. And I'll use the phone, but I prefer messaging and stuff like that. So I called the guy, and turns out that, you know, he's in the middle of selling his business, which is why he was selling this stuff, or he was moving, or whatever the story was. And so I finally said, hey, look, you know, I'm interested in this. You're about an hour away from me, so let's plan a time. And he said, okay, how about next week or whatever? So I went up there, I got the monitor, and I'm loading it into my car, because he came out of the house right away with the monitor. I didn't go in or anything. And I'm packing it in the car. I'm about to leave. I'm closing the door. And I say, is there anything else you got? You know, if there's anything else, other Apple stuff, you know, just let me know. He's like, well, come on inside. And he had an eMac. He had a 6100 workgroup server. He had a 9650 workgroup server. He had a clamshell iBook. He had, what else did he have? a bunch of software and
Did you
disks.
say a 9150?
No, a 9250. I'm sorry, 9650.
Oh,
9650.
9650.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so he had just a ton of stuff, but the problem was he ran a business where there was a lot of sensitive information on there. And so he said, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. I can't get rid of it. And me being the dork I am, I carry zip disks and floppy disks and CD disks in my trunk of my car. So I said, well, let's work out a deal. I could erase the data in front of you.
I imagined you having a utility belt with all your zip disks on. So.
That's my attire that I only wear at formal parties. I assure you.
I'm sorry, this image came in. I had to share.
I'm gonna have to build that for a video. I'll have the thing that Chewbacca wears, but there'll be zip disks there, and so I make this deal with him where for basically $50. He gives me all these machines with the caveat that I have to erase them or remove the drive from them. So I was able to erase it to his satisfaction. And again, I'm packing the stuff into my car. And I'm jokingly saying to him, is there anything else? And he says, well, there's one more Apple thing, but it's really old. And I don't know if it works anymore. And I don't know if you want it. And I'm thinking, what could it be? Could it be an Apple I, an Apple II? What is this thing? And so he leads me down to the basement, and under the stairs there's an old television box. And he opens it up and he pulls out a profile hard drive. And then under that is an Apple III with the monitor.
There you go.
And
oh yeah,
I think he wanted an extra $20 or $30 for it. And I said okay, let me just go to the bank because I was all out of cash. And so I think that was one of the best cases.
Quick before he sells it to someone
exactly,
else.
Before he realizes what this was. And it's just one of those things where if I hadn't asked, hey, what else you got or whatever, and I was nice, I said, look, some of this stuff could be valuable, but it's also, I don't know if it works, and he was more than happy to just make sure it goes to a good home, and he just wanted that stuff gone, and he was happy to do it.
Would I make myself unpopular with your fans if I admitted that the opportunity I had for an Apple III, I passed it up because I was just because I'm not I said this to you the other day, I never experienced Apple IIs or that era as a kid, so I've got no nostalgia for it, no experience of it, and I hate command lines and all that other rubbish. So why would I put myself through it?
Yeah.
So they're great machines. Like I said, I had the Apple II GS, and I did play with that quite a bit. But I'm much more a Mac person. So yeah, the chap who had the pair of Lisas, he had Apple IIs, really early ones. He had Apple II clone, an ITT one, and he had an Apple III, and he had all this other stuff. And I was just like, you know what? And I knew this other collector that I know was in contact with him too. And I was like, that guy can have it all. He's gonna love it.
Yeah.
I do not need everything. If I'm not going to get something out of something, then there's no point me collecting it. I only collect stuff where I'm there's some kind of strand of interest for me there, something where I want to explore, dig into, experience, or whatever.
And honestly, the same thing happened to me with the Apple III, because I saw it there, and he was moving. So this thing was either going to be, you could just ignore the House of Moth J there. He always says people are unpopular, but you're not that unpopular. Jay's part of our Maccast crew, okay. so we always give each other a hard time. Very
good.
So the Apple III, he was either probably going to toss or whatever, and so I am like you. I enjoy the Apple II series because I used to play games on them in school because our school was so out of date that they actually still had some Apple IIs when I went there. And so the Apple III, I actually thought, well, I'll grab it and I'll sell it because maybe I could buy something else with it. And I may still do that one day because it's been sitting on the shelf just looking at me most of the time. I have the external floppy drive for it just sitting over here. So it actually came with the external floppy. It came with the profile drive, which is sitting on the shelf over there. But it's just one of those things where it's really cool, but there's not too much software or anything that I need the Apple III to use. So it looks really cool. I'm probably more interested in the monitor than the system itself, but it's one of those things that during a rainy day maybe I'll get up and running, and I got the profile drive to work, so that was exciting. But
they make a serious racket, the profile drive. It sounds like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like something caught in a fan, or I don't know. The Lisa's hard drive, actually, my Lisa's got an internal hard drive, and it is like, I actually am scared when I turn it on. It's like, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a bit scary. I didn't really know if mine worked when I got it, and thanks to my Mac friends, we all got it to work, and I did a little video about it because I had no idea.
Nice.
And it was very intimidating because you have this drive that the mechanism itself is this big, and I had to open the thing and
you could kill a man with that.
yeah, it's a weapon. It's like a boom.
Actually, the biggest hard drive that I've experienced so far in my collection is my Next Cubes hard drive, which was like, I think on my Instagram there's a photo of me weighing it because I was like, this is so heavy, I can't. I think it was like a couple of kilograms or something. I'll have to find that. Anyway, but yeah, sorry, I totally interrupted you.
No. That's actually, we'll get to your son and your next stuff in a second because I want to talk about that. But something funny happened in the chat. I want to address it. So what is your opinion of the puck mice that...
Oh, the puck mice. Do I have it? I don't think I've got any.
The one that came with the iMac, for nobody that is not paying attention here.
I think, they admitted the problem, didn't they? Because the second generation of the puck mouse, I think it had like a little indent.
Yeah, it has a little indent
in the button. But I mean, so I luckily didn't have to suffer. I never had a Mac that had one of those. I think I jumped from my Pulsar to a G4, and the G4 came with a Pro mouse, which is much more sensible. I think they're neat. I mean, come on,
they're neat and they're colorful.
Yeah, but they're style over function. They're style over function.
That is
that's
typical
fine.
Apple. Yeah, that is exactly what they were.
I have a lot of mice here, and I've got some silly ones. Look, here's I've got a mouse here that is if you're thinking about mice that have really bad ergonomics, this is a mouse for a range of Hewlett-Packard Unix machines, and it is like, that is not comfortable to put your hand on for hours on end, is it?
That looks
painful. But it looks cool.
It looks like a medieval torture device.
Yeah, that would be bad for your RSI, I think. And I don't know. Yeah, the puck mouse was bad.
I have to go grab one. I have to go grab another mouse.
I think I'm not going to criticize people who like it, because I think you can enjoy it on an aesthetic level, and I think you can have nostalgia for it too, right? It was like from an era. But I was glad to see the back of it. I don't think too many people are upset, and I think it depends if you like your hands or not, I guess. Yeah. If you don't like your hands, if you're kind of a masochist,
I mean,
then it's all good.
I didn't have the iMac, but my dad had the G4 Tower, and it came with the puck mouse, and I didn't really hate it. It was just, all right, that's the mouse we're going to use, and it wasn't until I got a Logitech 2-button mouse that was programmable with the second button for games and stuff like that, where I was really like, oh, okay, I could play Unreal Tournament and not have to push the button for the alternate fire. I could use the right click. So it was, it was the sort of usefulness, I have too many of them in my collection to say I dislike it. So
okay. So what about, wait a second, we're meant to be talking about old Macs. I just realized I was about to talk about a more modern mouse, and I feel like the puck mouse is probably the cutoff, right, for what we should be talking about.
No, you could. I was just gonna say, I love this stupid little thing. This is a Logitech Kids mouse, and that
is brilliant.
This is just, it looks like a mouse, but the cord is weird, so it like goes from the bottom up, and it has 2 buttons, but this is only a single button mouse for the Mac. I show this thing off every chance I get because it is so absurd. I saw this when I was in school. And it was on my eBay list forever. It is literally called the Logitech Kids Mouse with a Z. And they made it for Mac and PC, so you have to make sure you get the Mac one. But I just love this silly thing.
Okay. Should we share silly input devices?
We've come to that section in the program.
Right, this is called... Here we go. This is called... You'll like the name. Oh, I like the name. I think you'll like it. Just need to get it out of the Ziploc. This is called the unmouse.
What is it?
I'll show. It is this.
My goodness.
And
Do you
from
put your face?
Microtouch.
Do you put your face on it?
No, it's for handprint identification. No, it's like the unmouse is basically. I don't. So what's weird about it? It's not just like a graphics tablet or a trackpad or something, because like it's clicky. Like, can you see I'm clicking
so
it?
So it's like that weird BlackBerry that you could feel it click.
Yeah, it's really odd. And there's a little. You see this little groove here? You could put cards into it. So I'll show you some of the cards.
Never
Look
seen
at
this thing before.
This is. Shall I show you? This is really cool.
This is a YouTube exclusive.
Okay, yeah. I have never used it. It was made by a company that made touchscreens, and I think it's the same technology. So look, like sort of macros.
Oh, wow.
And you sort of slide that into there. And then we go, now I can do a new or an undo.
That's reminding me of something.
And then,
you go on, I'm going to grab something.
And then this one is my favorite. This one's my favorite. This one's really good. This is really good. Look, it's a Mac Paint one. So it has like a tiny Mac Paint screen on it.
Wow.
And basically you could tap for the different, place image to trace here is what it says.
So it was maybe accurate enough to do that?
Well, I doubt it. I think it might have been aspirational.
So that...
But it's got all these different cards.
Wow.
For all different applications like Excel, Word, and all those things. So yeah, that's another one. And then show yours, and I'll show my next one.
Yeah, sure. So your
what have you got there?
Your weird thing reminded me of this video touchpad for the Atari 2600. Ooh. And so this goes to
I like it.
I think it came with Star Raiders, but it's a crazy contraption that
it's like macros for video games.
Yeah, and there I think you could put overlays here, but it's
nice.
So I mean the box is falling apart here, but this is just, well, I guess it was a pack with the game and the controller there. But yeah, it's a bit of a silly peripheral. I don't think you'd see as many silly things today, but I could be mistaken.
So should we? I'll show you something that I showed you the other day. So if you had bought Flight Simulator 4.
Oh yes, I love this. Pay attention, guys.
Yeah. Then you might need the mouse yoke.
I love it.
This is how the mouse yoke works. You strap your poor innocent mouse into this harness, and then you sort of. I mean, this looks obscene, doesn't it? Look at that.
It's a torture device for the
poor
mouse.
It is. Yeah. And then basically you can be a pilot. But what's brilliant is I love this. It's kind of like almost like it's endorsed. There's a little Microsoft Flight Simulator compatible with Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Yeah.
And here we go. The slogan is the thrill of realistic flight in seconds.
That is like. What? Imagine you trying to actually use a computer with that. Just like the mouse is stuck in there. You have to deal with it. The only thing more ludicrous of that is like if you had this poor little guy strapped to there, then it would just look even more sadistic.
Yes. A mouse, poor little mouse. I love that mouse, by the way. I might have to get one of those myself.
Yeah, that was an eBay find I did not regret. Oh my boy, that's a crazy contraption. You have to try that out one day and let us know how it works.
I would. Do you know what? I would be. I mean, I've never tried it.
We could do it live.
If anyone had the patience, not today, but we could do it live. We could do a live.
I'll hold you up to that.
Unyoking. Yeah. Let's yoke up this mouse.
I can hear the people unsubscribing from here, but I don't care.
Tonight we're going to be torturing a mouse in the name of flight simulating.
No animals were harmed in the filming of this episode. Yes.
Yeah. But, and we can pick a mouse as well. I think I've got about 30 of those ADB mice. So we can have a thing where the viewers get to vote on which mouse we yoke up.
And you have to tell us, and you have to rate and review the compatibility of each mouse, because 50 years from now someone's going to find a warehouse of those things, and they're going to need to know which of those are compatible with it. Oh man.
But yeah, no, I mean, basically, the problem is we won't be able to tell if it's any good or not because I'm so bad at flight simulators anyway. The plane will crash whether or not.
No, you just blame it on the
peripheral,
peripheral, that's all. Oh, this thing stinks. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Yeah. Blame the tools. That's the right thing. So yeah, no, I think that's another thing that I like is like obscurities. I think so those are really good examples of like, I see something on eBay and I'm like, I have to have that. It's just too weird. And if it's for a Mac, I love it even more because the Mac market was so much smaller. The obscurities are almost so much more special and exciting. Actually, I've got one more. One more. I'll grab it. It's hidden back here somewhere. Where is it? Now I've got to try and remember where it is.
If you pull the wrong bookshelf, does like a secret layer open up? Or?
I can neither confirm nor deny, Steve. How about the Kodak Data Show?
Ooh.
Look at this.
Ooh.
It's a remote control for your Mac. So basically, you've got an important presentation the next day. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're announcing Mac OS 10 or the iPhone. Maybe you're announcing the iPhone. And so you wheel out your SE. That is an SE, isn't it? Yeah, an SE on stage. And this means you don't have to be next to it. You don't have to touch the mouse to hit next slide. You can just use this remote. This is another thing I've not tried. Look at this. There we go. She's presenting there to her team.
With a very expensive video out modification, I'm sure.
Actually, that's I think that's going to be one of those LCDs that goes over an overhead projector, isn't it? Because you can see the overhead projector mirror there.
It's a very expensive setup.
And you would get, fancy, isn't it? I don't even know if I've probably looked inside this box once. Wow. There we go. There it is.
So that connects to a serial port?
The serial port. And this is actually really nicely done. Like this logo is all like embossed and painted and stuff. That's fancy. Yeah.
That is a brilliant little piece of hardware.
It's got special effects. That sounds pretty amazing. Just imagine a remote that does special effects for your Mac. Anyway, sorry.
Do that and the flyback transformer explodes.
Right?
Yeah. There goes the Visa cap.
Like I said, there's like over 1,000 pieces of crap in this room, and so we could just go forever. So sorry, you need to get us back on track, Steve.
Okay, because we'll I swear we'll have another show called 1,000 Pieces of Crap, and 1,000 episodes later we'll run out of ideas. But yeah, so you talked about some of the BOS machines, which I really didn't know much about, but you do have a few or some experience rather with Next machines and some Sun machines. So do you want to sort of talk about how you got addicted to those platforms as well, or how you even got to have any of those?
Well, I would say, so I think, what's the phrase I'm looking for? The sort of, that's kind of the entry point was the Mac obsession, right? And then it's kind of like, okay, there's other interesting machines that are part of the Mac story. And I think that all starts with really, well, in terms of B, it's because I remember growing up, being a teenager, and that being in all the Mac magazines, like, oh, BIOS, amazing. And I remember getting the free preview release of BIOS that you could run on your Mac. I ran it on my Mac, and suddenly I could like have a 3D spinning cube with a QuickTime video on every side, which my Mac could barely even, play one QuickTime movie. So that kind of blew my mind. So that's where the B thing came from, really, and that sort of, there was a real excitement there that then just died. And so it was like, what happened there? So that makes that interesting. But then, of course, the other one is Next. That's really interesting as part of the Mac history. And it is super fascinating. And it was, I don't have the kind of Steve Jobs thing that a lot of people, I think, have. But what no one can deny is that he kicked off and curated and shepherded a lot of interesting people to do interesting things. And he definitely pushed them hard, and interesting stuff happens when you do that kind of thing. And so I think Next is super interesting because they took a really good foundation for an operating system and that sort of thing, and a pretty good foundation for hardware. And they were like determined to make it in the same way that Mac was team was determined to make something user friendly. But the difference is that, you know, like Unix underpinning, and especially the Mac, not to be confused with Mac kernel or Mark, I don't know how you say it, the kernel that A.V. Tavanian basically invented with his team. I think they made something super stable and very, very interesting because, you know, you're talking about late 1980s designing this, and it just feels so modern. It's just like mind-boggling, like how, and that's so interesting. And then of course, you know, they make a flipping magnesium cube just there, and like it's ridiculous. The hardware is ridiculous. The software is ridiculous for different reasons. The hardware is ridiculous because it's sort of fetishistic and like almost like they're almost like religious artifacts or something, relics or something because of the engineering involved. And but I mean, that is one of the slowest computers I've ever used as well. It is dog slow. Like you get all excited and then you run Next Step on it and you're like, wow, how did anyone use this? It's super frustrating, but it all looks amazing and the promise is there. Like there's a real like sense of like what this could be. And I think, you know, they delivered on that when we got to OS 10. Eventually they delivered on everything. And, you know, there's the road there was a very rough one for all sorts of interesting reasons as well. The history of Next is absolutely fascinating. There's some few good books about it. But yeah, so the next thing just fits in because it's like part of the intertwined history of just like, generally I'm interested in computer history in general. So I'll read, and like, I've read brilliant books about Palm and stuff like that. Like I'm really interested in basically any computing history, but then there are points for me as someone who's very interested in design and human computer interaction, like both professionally and just personally, when people made effective GUIs, you know, graphical user interfaces, and when people were thinking really hard about how to help people use computers, that makes those stories particularly interesting for me. And Next is definitely one of those. They were trying really hard just to make something that worked really well for the user. So that's where the next thing comes from. And also like, yeah, like the hardware. I mean, it's irresistible in its design, really, isn't it? I mean, it's
so cool looking too. Just the coolness factor alone. I mean, I have reached out to people who have had them for sale, or there was rumors that somebody had one, and if one ever comes, it's sort of like my thing that I keep saying about like the 20th anniversary Mac. If one comes my way at a reasonable price, I'll grab it. It's sort of the thing with the Next Cube. Like I'm not actively looking for it, but if it's just like, oh hi, you want this? I'm like, okay, But it's just one of those things that at least here in the U.S. they're very hard to come by. So
yeah, and like I think sorry, I'm grabbing a couple of things to wave.
No worries.
I think it is like. Yeah, I spent a long time waiting for something to come up, and there is a Next forum, and there are people on there talking, but they don't come up. They are super rare, and of course, by the time I managed to get hold of one, it was in Japan, and I shipped it back here, and that was just ridiculous. And I'm just very lucky to have been able to do that. Like, not everyone can do this, and then, of course, I'm pretty sure one turned up in Europe, like, right after. And I was like, oh. That's
always how it happens. That is always what happens.
Yeah.
I forget what I got it was something like that. It was a Pioneer Laser Active pack for the for that player. Sweet. It was a Sega pack. And long story short, I had one. I sent it off to get recapped. The guy never gave it back. So that was kind of a sore spot. But... yeah.
That is not okay.
No, that is not okay.
Wow.
There's a police report somewhere that's not getting any traction. But anyway,
sorry, dude, that sucks.
It does. But lucky for me, when I was visiting Japan in 2019, I just happened to go into, you might be familiar, there's a shop called Book Off, which is more like software, thrift store, DVDs, stuff like that.
Nice.
And then there's a Hard Off store, which is hardware and electronics and stuff.
Yeah.
And so most of those hard off stores have a junk section in the basement where things are untested or whatever, or it's just we can't test it, but it's here. And there was a laser active Sega pack with the controller for about, I think it was $300, which is what you usually pay for just the pack. And the controllers usually go for $70 to $100 because it's
a special
because it says
controller.
Pioneer on it. That's the only difference.
Oh.
so I had one controller that I bid on and I lost the auction, and it was about $50 or $60. But I was like, you know what, I would, just for the controller. I grew up with Sega stuff, so that was sort of my thing. So I ended up biting the bullet and said, you know what, when am I going to be in Japan again with a laser active staring at me in the face? It's just at least the Sega part of it. So I did end up buying that, and with there was a discount if you didn't have to pay tax if you were from outside of Japan. So I filled out the custom form or whatever it was. So I got a little bit of a discount. When it made me feel a little bit better of spending that much money. But I was on vacation. I'm like, all right, come on, this is the one expensive thing I buy.
I fully support this. I fully support it. Don't you worry.
It's like I'm trying to convince myself it's okay.
When you were on the Retro Maccast stream, what was it? I was definitely goading you to get that thing on eBay that I won't mention right now. In case,
it will be revealed at some point. Yes.
But yeah, I was like, you gotta get it. You gotta get it. If you need enabling, Steve, ever, like, I'm your man.
Just be careful, James. It works both ways.
Someone mentioned in the chat the OS 10 public beta, and I've got a copy here that my friend posted. So again, like, as long as people know what you're into, you can. This is another way you get stuff not overpriced. Like, a friend of mine knows I collect all this crap, and he was like, "Oh, I've still got one of those beta things I never used. Do you want me to send it to you?" And he just posted it to me for free, right? And I think if you get a name for yourself as being into something, and you see this a lot with the big YouTube channels as well. Like, people just send in donations because they're like, this person's going to look after and appreciate this thing that I don't really care about or don't want anymore or whatever. And I think that's just another example of how you get this stuff. Yeah. Like, I got given a 17-inch AV monitor, a PowerBook 2300, the Duo, and a Duo dock, all this other stuff. Because someone just didn't want it. But that was years ago, and like, this is one of my embarrassing things of like, I think I chucked the dock and the monitor because I didn't have any room for them, and I only kept the Duo.
Yeah.
I feel really bad.
We've all made decisions like that. I remember I had an SE and a Plus. I don't know where I got them from, whether it was my brother, he found them in an old school thing or what. But I was sort of allergic to compact Macs. I was like scared of their CRTs exploding, or I was a teenager or whatever.
I understand that.
And so I think I tested them and I didn't get any signs of life from it. For all I know, the CRT was cracked. That's what the story I tell myself to lull myself to sleep at night. But I ended up selling them for like $1 each or something. I just didn't want them to throw out, and hopefully they're still out there making somebody happy.
Yeah, and I like, for another example is there's a collector not far from London. He's like sort of 30, 40 miles east of London, and he does loads of archiving. He's got like a massive magazine article, magazine archive website.
Oh, wow.
I think it's called Vintage Apple Mac or something, and he puts loads of stuff on archive.org. Like, he's one of those people that helps out Jason Scott with all this stuff.
Oh, nice.
And he collects. I mean, he's got really busy with like his kids and stuff, so I think he does it a lot less now. But he was collecting boxed software Mac games when they were like dirt cheap. Like,
that's so cool.
15 years ago. But I had all these boxed games that I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to play these ones. They're ones that I just picked up really cheap or had come with other things that I had wanted. And so I packaged up like, I think 10 or 15 boxed Mac games and just posted them to him. I was like, you're going to archive these. You're going to put them on the places on the internet, archive.org, where everyone's going to be able to enjoy them. I don't have the time to do that. And like, you'll enjoy them more than me as well. So I just stuck them in a box and sent them to him. No charge, nothing, because I just knew it was the right thing to do. It felt like the right thing to do. And like, sometimes it's a bit like, oh, it'd be nice to have that game. And then I'm like, no, like, get over it. Like, you don't need, you sent them off because you didn't need them and you knew you weren't going to play with them.
Yeah.
So,
but that's fantastic.
It goes both ways, right?
Yeah, and that's how you share.
And like, I would say that if I was in the game for making money, one of the stupidest things I've ever done, which I do not think is stupid, but if I was in the game for making money, was when I got those two Lisas, they came with a Lisa mouse, and I already had a Lisa mouse from another thing that I've told you about, which we can go into if we don't get to it today. We can talk about another time. But I had two Lisa mice and I had two Lisa twos, but I knew that one of the Lisa twos had probably never come with a Lisa mouse because there was a generation, probably when they started selling them as Macintosh XLs, but maybe before, where they came with the Macintosh mouse basically. And like the Lisa mouse sells for like stupid. I think it's like $1,000 on eBay that people buy them for. It's like, what is this? It's just completely ridiculous. And the collector who bought the Lisa 2 off me, I just threw in the mouse. I was like, you have it. You know, it goes with your Lisa. Like, you got to have it. And like, I could have been like a butthead and been like, you need to give me a few $100 more for that or whatever. And I was just like, there's no point.
No.
And I also was really grateful because he took a bunch of base G3s off me that I have no interest in whatsoever. So I was like, get rid of it. But yeah, so, I think, I the way I see it is I try not to be greedy. Like, I usually sell stuff for a bit more if I've put some work into restoring it. And I'm just like, well, I bought extra parts and spent loads of effort and time, and I just want that covered a bit. But otherwise, if I want these computers and software to go to good homes as much as anyone else, really. And that for me, the preservation is kind of the important thing, not my obsession.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that because there are some things that I have a few iBook G4s. I don't need all of them. I have multiples of this. I don't need multiples of this or that. But it's the idea of sharing something with others. It's like I have a stack of whatever here. You have one. You're going to enjoy it more than it's just going to sit on the shelf collecting dust. And the whole thing about archiving is just, that is what I'm all about. I'm of the mind of, look, this stuff is so outdated. Anybody who wants to actually find drivers for these weird peripherals that don't exist anymore, like that Mac yoke thing or whatever device you may have, good luck finding them these days. And it's funny because I'll actually take a hard drive from a computer I picked up from an e-waste place, and I'll look at it and see if there are any drivers on there for some weird obscure thing that is not on the old Mac Driver Museum website or anything like that, because a lot of this stuff is not there. There are missing pieces, and I think it's worse on the Mac side because with Windows, the market share was so much larger. There were so many more people, and there was such a larger chance that somebody would leave the disk here or you would get the disk. But for the Mac stuff, I feel like it's a bit harder to come by. I don't know if you found that as well.
No, totally. I'm very aware that the fact that the market was so much smaller means that it's so much harder to find stuff. And when I buy a box of stuff, well, it's harder these days, but I used to always straight away archive it all, and you'd always find that like one of the floppies didn't work, and you're like, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I collect sufficiently strange bits and bobs that sometimes it isn't on Macintosh Garden or one of these other archiving places, and I'm like, what am I going to do about this? And I have to wait for another floppy disk to come up somewhere somew. And so you end up with duplicates because you're trying to make sure that a complete thing can be saved in some way. And there shouldn't be a total obsession about sort of saving everything in the world, but I do think often it is useful. And the reason I've only ever got something working because someone else has saved the software already, and I'm able to download it. And I just want to make sure that other people have that chance too. And you could.
I'm sorry. Go on.
No. It's just whether it's a driver, like you were saying, or it's just something that means you can do some interesting thing that otherwise isn't possible. And it could be anything. It could just be some program that someone used when they were a kid and they loved, and they get to play with it again. And I think that it always comes back to the human element of like people like getting to enjoy this. Or just whatever this is that we do.
And it's also, people may look at the box or something or a manual for something and go, oh, it's garbage, but a lot of these old pieces of software, they had protection algorithms or password things that you needed the booklet for, or like you said, somebody is fond of something, they would like to have that. So it's like if I have I have a box set of like Microsoft Office for, I think it's version 4 or whatever for the Mac. I don't have a personal attachment to that, but there's somebody out there who, wants the original discs for whatever reason. And, that's why whenever I find a floppy disk or a CD that I know is something special, I'll archive it, or I'll put in pile to archive it later. And there's some really cool stuff like these ARPL collectives or these Apple marketing library discs that I got a hold of recently. And they're all archives, so I just had to upload them somewhere and organize them. But they're a fantastic treasure trove of like WWDC presentations, like the actual director files and the actual QuickTime videos and slides and decks and stuff like that.
Oh, I love that stuff.
And it's just like, Apple does not even have press releases on their site that are older than a few years old anymore. So, all that stuff that's on these discs, I want to make sure that's on Macintosh Archive, on Macintosh Garden and archive.org. That's what I want.
And there's an example of the thing you're talking about, exactly that. Like I have, I don't know, like 100 or something of the early Apple developer CDs that they would send out if you're part of the Apple developer program. Yeah, and but loads of them, maybe most, are not archived, and so I've had people contact me and say, "Oh, I need this one bit of software off. I know it's on this CD from this era. There was, it was an Apple. It was like a tool just for developers, and I need it because there are actually still people out there making classic Mac software. Yeah. And so, an example is one of the people who's working on. There's a Mac SSH tool, which I now can't remember the name for. And basically, they contacted me and said, "I really need this tool. It's on this CD." And I went and imaged it. I grabbed it, imaged it, sent it over to them the next day because they couldn't find it anywhere. They'd looked, and this is someone doing an interesting project. Yeah. And it would be so selfish of me to not help there when it's 5 minutes work really. And so and the fact that I can offer a bit of a resource that's useful is great. That felt really good.
Yeah, you just have to set up an old Power Mac with an Apple script on it. So you just put the disk in, it rips it, and puts it somewhere, and then uploads it to a server.
The old floppy disk swapping.
You got it. I have to do that as well. So when I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, no, it's terrifying. I've got shelves and shelves of.
But I mean, there's no doubt a disc or something in your collection that somebody elsewhere doesn't know that they need yet. But it's like for a hardware driver or something. I was doing a need. I was doing a video about this is on my old YouTube channel about video game stuff, and it was basically getting a game save off of a physical memory card to this old PC, and it was this convoluted adapter, which of course nobody had the driver for. But lo and behold, I forgot I did myself a favor, and I actually compressed that file and archived it probably 12, 13 years before I even got the chance to play around with the adapter myself. So I actually stumbled upon my old Angel Fire webpage, which dates it, where I uploaded this 2 megabyte zip file that was the only source of the driver for that particular thing. So I was so happy with myself. I'm like, hey!
That's so cool. Yeah. It's so cool. And that's the thing, we've all got our own little treasure troves, and it's what is in there that's useful. I was telling you the other day, I do have a database of almost everything in my collection.
Oh, nice.
It's almost everything. And what I do is one of the fields I have is have I archived this or not? So that when I come back, at least I'm not being I have no idea if I've ever done this.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I remember what I have, which is problematic.
That happens to me too, because I'll switch whatever machine I was using to archive a disk, and if it's not in the backed up disks folder, I think, oh, I haven't done this before. And some disks, especially floppies, are more sensitive to how you're backing them up and stuff like that. So, you could go through this whole troubleshooting of getting it backed up, and then you realize, crap, that's already saved somewhere.
Yeah. That's the worst thing, where you realize you've doubled up your efforts when you don't even have time in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so it's better to keep organized. But I know you're in a bit of a time crunch for the next 15 or so minutes, and then we have to say goodbye. But I want to. We can continue chatting, but I want to open it up to the chat if anybody has questions too. If feel free to dump them in the chat, we'll answer them. But let's continue. Just opening an invite there, because everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. Everyone's cozy here, so that's great. We still got about 40 people watching. And, it's just fantastic to hear from someone that is just as nutty about this stuff as I am.
Oh, do you want me to look? This is the folder I told you about. This is like the Japanese brochures, and they're nearly all clones.
Oh my goodness, that is cool.
So there's Motorola. This is a Super Mac.
Oh, nice.
Which obviously was UMax. There's another one over there. What's this? This is Power Tools.
That looks...
one of the clone manufacturers I've never heard of.
Yeah, wow. I never heard of them either.
Yeah, and then we've got more Super Mac. There's more. Oh no, it's the same page. I've gone mad. There we go. And then we've got your Apus there.
Oh, there it is.
I think it's so ugly. And then we get into the Pioneer stuff.
Ooh.
And I'll get this one out. This one's really good. Pioneer MPC, the multimedia personal computer. I've got a couple of these. Can't remember which one's the good one. There we go. But anyone who wants anything, just let me know if you want to see anything that's in my collection.
Cool. Well, now you know what you're going to have to do.
Can't really tell.
You're going to have to scan all this for me. Or just take photos. That is so cool. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's one of the machines that Neil on RMC had.
Yeah. So I would love what I would like is the 0401 is really interesting because I don't think there was any other non-PowerPC like licensed clones.
Yeah.
But what I'd really like is the one that was basically the PowerMac 6100, which I think is the LX. Wait, which one is it?
I had it.
Oh, it's the MPC. It's the GX1. The GX1 I'm very interested in.
That's the
getting a GX1.
That's the 040?
No, that's the 6100.
Oh, that's right.
Just because I want to put my DOS card in it. But what's bizarre is if you look at you can't see the back of it here, but basically the back is the same like molding as the 6100,
I've
but
seen,
like taller.
A photo of it, and I read a bit about it, and it's apparently, and from what I understand, this could be false, but it's basically an Apple board with speakers and extra plastic because Pioneer wanted the audio to sound fantastic.
Yeah, and the mouse and keyboard are just the same Apple design mouse and keyboard, but where the Apple logo was, they basically switched out with a Pioneer logo. So you get this beautiful, so it's the Apple ADB mouse, the round one, but instead of an Apple, there's an embossed Pioneer logo. It just looks really cool.
And thank you for the super chat, Greg, by the way. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, there's a little webcam, and I do have that in a box. It's really dirty. It's really dirty, but I do. It's now we're gonna have to get it out to find out. We're gonna have to get it out.
You don't have to do it now.
I'm just here. I've got it's got Pippin brochure and stuff as well. The app mark.
See, I've never seen a lot of this stuff before, especially not in like high resolution video quality.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, I trawl a lot of places, and I don't think that many people are interested in the documentation and the brochures and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of like marketing materials and brochures and stuff like that because, like I said before, like it's how you find out all the history that was going on. It just gets lost otherwise because most of it never appeared on the web.
Oh, of course,
because it's that old or whatever.
Yeah, or those pages aren't fully archived, so there's only a bit of it there.
Yeah, exactly. Where have I left this webcam? It's somewhere. I remember it's really, really grotty.
Don't worry, I have the same problem.
This is really good live stream material, right?
Of course.
Someone searching for a cardboard box.
Hey, I do it all the time.
I might have to give up on that one. We might have to look for that
another
day, unless I spot it.
You'll be coming back, I think, by popular demand, so don't worry.
Someone is iApple guys asking, what was the first machine you recapped? Wow, now that is really. Okay, so what I can tell you I can remember is I recapped with through-hole capacitors.
Yep.
So I did the old trick where you snip the legs and then you bend them slightly so you can solder them solder pads. And obviously that doesn't look very pro.
I did the same thing.
Not something I would do anymore. Yeah, we all start somewhere, right? And but trying to remember what machine it was. I'm pretty sure it was a 2SI.
Oh, okay.
I think I got given a 2SI for like £5 about 20 years ago, and I kept it. And then I recapped it recently, but not recently. Sorry, that was the first thing I recapped. What was that, like 5, 6 years ago? But there's one. I think I did my SE30 that I'd had since I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
Next, and I did the same thing, but then about a year or two ago, I went back and redid it all completely properly.
The most important part is you got all the disgusting old caps out of there and the battery and all that junk. So that's good.
yeah, everything. And I'm not going to say I'm some sort of expert now, but I can do quite complex surface mount stuff now, and I sort of feel quite good about that.
Excellent.
Like I've taken, whole ICs off and replaced them with a heat gun and that kind of thing. I'm still like totally amateur level, but like much more confident amateur.
Well, we all, like you said, we all start up.
Often.
We all start at that level, and then you sort of build on it. But I don't consider myself a professional. There's tons of problems that I still have. That the reason I do a live stream of me fixing something is because there's a bunch of other smart people that know this stuff just as much as I do, or even better. That's going to take one look at it and go, that's touching that. I've seen that a million times before. The pad is just a little smaller than the capacitor, so the capacitor is grounding itself. That happened the other day. And, so I never take it as like, oh, I'm this, the end all be all of recapping. Yeah. It's like, nope, I'm just like everyone else, just trying to figure it out. And it's very rewarding, though, to fix up these machines, I know.
Yeah, and I learned by watching stuff on YouTube how to do it. I could solder when I was a kid. Like I did a digital electronics course when I was like 15 because I wasn't gonna stay. I was gonna leave school. So I grew up in Oxford, and that's where the BMW Mini is made these days. And it was before. I was at school before the BMW Mini existed, and at the time it was a company called Rover, who are an old British car company, and they were having they were going to go bust. It was really obvious to everyone, but they ran courses for like kids who wanted to become like an apprentice and then go into it professionally. And so I went and did digital electronics course there, and so I learned all this stuff, and then I just forgot it all because then I decided that I wanted to go and be a designer instead and put kind of electrical engineering behind me. So then, of course, it's ironic that 20, 30, whatever it is, a long time later, too many years, I came back to sort of fiddling around with all that stuff. But I used to know how to use an oscilloscope, and I have no idea how to do it now. One thing that is in common, though, is that I've blown stuff up, blown capacitors up, both when I was young and recently.
That's a skill that you never get tired of, though. That's something you're always happening. But let's see. There was one thing I wanted to talk about, and that was part of a story that you told me. Hopefully we have some time to do that. I know you have sort of a tight schedule today, but you told me a story about you finding your way into this. I don't know if you want to call it a warehouse or, but it was.
I like the containers.
Yes, the containers. Do you want to talk about that? Because I found this very fascinating.
So there was. I really wish that I could remember exactly how I heard about this, but basically I think someone put some posts on eBay that basically said, got massive collection to sell. I'm not going to detail any of it here, but they put a URL in, and they had a website, and it was a website for a Macintosh dealer in the east of England that had, I think, basically gone bust. Well, not gone bust, but the founder had retired basically, and it turned out they had these couple of containers absolutely brimful of not just Macs but accessories, peripherals, service parts, and loads of trade-in parts for people who'd upgraded. Because they'd shut down the business, and they had to get rid of all this rubbish that was left over from the business, and it was pretty incredible. I can't drive, so I rang up my nerdiest friend and I was like, we got to go and do this. Luckily, I was going to say luckily he agreed. Obviously he's going to agree because he's totally into this kind of thing.
As long as he gets his cut.
I knew who to call. And we went out there, and it was just bonkers. There was one container that was just full of displays and printers, and it had a filing cabinet in it where every drawer had like just new bus cards and accelerator cards and expansion cards, and there was one of the drawers in it had it was all like people who'd upgraded from. You could tell this dealership had gone way back because it was all people who had their 128K Mac upgraded to like 512 or to a plus, and so it just had tons of 128K and 512K boards in it.
So please tell me you just took the entire filing cabinet.
Do you know what? Like, I had this like sense that I shouldn't take too much stuff, which I now really regret.
Of course.
And I remember seeing, they put up a bunch of photos of what they had on their website, and I remember seeing like a Quadra 700 recorder, and I hadn't seen a Quadra 700 come up for sale anywhere, and I was like, oh, I have to get it. And I did manage to get it when I got there. And but then there was just, I remember the other container then had just shelves and shelves and shelves of service parts, often in like the Apple service boxes. And I ended up with like spare PowerBook displays that had never been opened, PowerBook 100 displays never been opened, motherboards never been opened, all this other stuff. And then it had computers, like compact Macs as far as the eye could see. And then it had just boxes full of stuff. And that's where I found my first Lisa mouse. There was just a box of mice and memory and other stuff. And there was just a Lisa mouse. And I was like, this is a funny looking mouse. I don't know what this is for. Like, I didn't know anything about the Lisa then, I think.
Yeah.
I was like, it says Apple on it and it looks weird. I'm having it. And then the other thing I found was when I was looking down for that box, I saw this box with this one up here, the 605. And the only thing I knew about the Quadra 605 is it had never been sold in the UK. So I was like, why is this here? And it has a US address on the top. And I realized that this was a container that had been full of like trade-ins. And I realized that it's someone who'd moved from the US to the UK and had traded it in to get money off their new computer or whatever. But it's all in box with its packaging. Everything works perfectly fine. I've recapped that, by the way. I've recapped everything. Maybe there's one or two recent things that have a sticker saying "recap me" on them with exclamation marks, but pretty much everything. But yeah, so it's weird because like 605 is a funny machine because obviously it's just an LC 475 or Performer 475 or whatever, all the other names it had. But it's the only one in that case. So like I was obviously like, oh, this is a fun thing to have. But I think it's an example of like one of those things where I'm like, this is really interesting, but can I really justify owning something I don't find LC475 particularly interesting myself, but I like that it's like a cute baby brother of a Quadra 610 or something.
It wasn't sold in your country, so that's maybe the only way you could grab it. So, that's one of those things that you have to sort of think of when you're out on these adventures and you see something that you normally don't see. You have to take advantage of it.
And those surprises just come up. And I there was so much good stuff there. And my friend that came with me, he's not really a Mac person. He likes retro computers, but he was like, I need to have like a good retro Mac set. And I was like, right, okay, let's get you set up. And they had like HD20, Macintosh Plus. Wow. They had the original Mac keyboard, Mac mouse. And so we were just like basically sifting through the ones. And it wasn't like you had to be like, oh, there's only one of this. It was like, which is the best out of these that you should get? Like, that's what it was like being in like a pick and mix. It was like, let's just find whichever the nicest examples of each thing is.
I assume this was before Apple sort of had their resurgence and they were popular again and people were looking for this type of stuff.
I think it was on the cusp of that because a few other people did turn up, like collectors and stuff, but there was very few of us. I mean, the guy who was running it was him and his son, like, running the show and making sure we were all behaving, and they were making us cups of tea. It was actually really friendly, and I basically ended up saying to them, look, this is what each of these things is worth, like, so when other people come. And then basically everyone came to them with a big pile of crap that they were sort of collecting from all around and said, how many hundreds of pounds or whatever do you want for this? And everyone was pretty honest, I would say, but like I definitely saw people picking up like Quadra 900s for like, I don't know, 50 quid or something, which obviously would not happen now.
Oh, of course.
Like,
that's
this
insane.
I think this was about this was 7 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
It was, and I went there twice, but then I didn't go again, and I couldn't get in touch with them again, and I could.
Oh no!
My brain was like, I was remembering all this stuff I'd seen that I didn't pick up, and I was like,
oh, that's what haunts you.
I tried to get in touch.
That's what haunts you.
Yeah, it totally haunted me. But yeah, so there's been a few trips like that, and like where the leases came from. Like I went up to the same guy 3 times, and I got so much stuff off him, but I regret that I let a few things slip through my fingers with him because on my first couple of visits I was like, oh well, there was so much stuff, and I was just like, well, maybe I should take that, but I just felt ridiculous kind of taking everything. And then when he still hadn't shifted stuff, I was like, well, obviously I want that. And then the last time I went, a museum had come and taken loads of stuff that I'd wanted, and I was just like, but you know, you can't really have the regrets when I ended up with, you know, Elisa and just so much other great stuff from him, tons of pristine brochures, magazines, box software, because he kept everything perfect.
Oh, wow.
Like he had receipts. He had receipts for like most stuff he bought.
Isn't that cool? The receipts aspect of it, just like, oh, that's just really neat.
He was kind of a bit obsessive as well, but he's like 90 now, and he just knew that he couldn't hold on to it anymore.
Yeah.
He was such a nice guy, and his daughter was lovely. His daughter had been a professional programmer for a bank, and she had used Lisa's at work.
Oh, wow.
As well, so they were just really interesting to talk to. He'd been a Spitfire pilot in the war. He'd done everything.
Oh, wow.
So
That's cool.
You sort of had this with your story earlier about picking up your Apple III. Like, the people you meet are like part of the fun as well.
Yeah.
Like sitting down for a cup of tea with interesting people who've used these machines, or like I always ask people, even when I buy stuff on eBay, I say, oh, what did you do with this? Like, how did you end up with this? Like, was this your business? All that kind of thing. Like, I've got all these Dorling Kindersley multimedia CDs up here. Like, The Way Things Work is the one that everyone remembers with the mammoths in it. And I've got a Mac and a screen that have Dorling Kindersley like imprinted, security code thing
cool.
in them. And it's like, I imagine, like, were they making those CD-ROMs, like multi CD-ROMs on those computers? And so, it's all just, I find it all just really fun. Like, it really brings it to life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Of sort of the time.
And you don't know those stories until you ask. And, 9 times out of 10, you might get a story, and sometimes people will be like, no, there's nothing exciting for me to talk about with it. But, that's like when I picked up one of the Macintosh clones I had. There was the Power Center 180 Pro I got was in the box. I had to drive a little bit to get it, but the guy got it, and he told me, it was cheaper than Apple. This is why I picked it up, and we had a great conversation about it. And I'm thankful for that, because it puts it into perspective, who bought this machine and why, and that's part of all the fun of this.
Yeah, my Pulsar came from its original owner. I think quite a few of my machines came from their original owner, and it's really fun.
Awesome.
I love the stories of all that.
And that's really what makes it personable too. It's like, it's not just this computer I picked up. It's this that was owned by so and so, and this is what they did with it.
Yeah. Everything's got a story, right? And I think everything in here pretty much has a story. I mean, maybe some of the things are a bit impersonal, eBay auctions or whatever, but like I might have my own story of like why I picked it up, or why I think it's interesting, or how it fits into computer history that makes it interesting. I mean, basically, it's good that I do this, because often what happens is, basically with my colleagues at work, I'll be like, oh yeah, I got this great thing off eBay the other day, and then I start like talking about it forever.
Yeah, it just needs a spark, to sort of start that. And then you get into these dangerous situations. Oh, man. So anybody in the chat have any questions for James while we yammer on here? Sorry, go on, James.
No, I just saw what Macintosh Librarian said.
Oh,
which made me laugh.
You look like...
Yeah. I drew the icon, and it was meant to look like me, so I'm pleased that it looks like me. So thank you.
I'm going to put up your
Instagram
on the screen here. Let me see if I could fancy this live here. Let me do a screen capture. Oh no, wait, I have to do one of these things here. We'll figure this out. But I want to share this because you have an excellent Instagram page, and if anybody is not on Instagram, that is not following James, I extremely urge you to do that. Because he has a fantastic set of photos on there. Let's see if I could bring the window in here. There we go. And let me put it on the screen so everybody can see. So here is his Instagram here. This is Hypertalking. And so you have more followers than I do, so hats off to you, sir.
That's why I do it. All I want, I do it for the likes. Do it for the likes, Steve.
And so, I mean, you have lovely things here. You have some photos of suns. I mean, this DOS card and the Apple II card in the box is just, I'm drooling just thinking about it. This Radius clone, this Power CD, that General Magic poster with Andy Hertzfeld's signature on it. I mean, how cool can you get?
That was a very kind gift from. I know you were in the chat earlier, and I've forgotten your name, which is really bad.
They'll forgive you.
I can't remember your name. But I drew his avatar. He said, "Oh, I really like your avatar," and I said, "I'm happy to draw." Like, I can't promise to everyone because I do have a kid and I have very little free time. But it was nice because I hadn't done any pixel art for a while, and so I was like, "Yeah, I'll draw you an avatar," and I had loads of fun. He sent me a photo, and I drew a little avatar for him, and it was great.
I was curious about that because I've seen a few people around with very similar icons, and I was curious if there was a source of all of them. So you're probably the inspiration or the source of a lot of them then.
Well, it was there's a chap in, I'm going to get this wrong, Slovenia, I think, and he has called Slow Mac User, which I think the SLO is Slovenian. Slow Mac User, and he had this and still has this great icon that I really loved. It was really in that style, that real Susan Kerr style of icon. And I was just like, that is great. I have to do something like that. And I sort of wish mine was a bit better, but now I've got it. I'm going to stick with it. And then
it is lovely.
Yeah,
I do like it.
I did his. Yeah, and then Mingo, Mingo and I have chatted for a really long time on Instagram, and he sent me my Power CD, and I sent him a quick cam, and I think we maybe done some other trades, I'm not sure, but he's a very nice chap, and he's done his own, which I also think is awesome. I actually think my personal opinion, I think he's done a better job of his than I've done of mine, but I'm still happy with mine, and I just love that pixel art style. But yeah, no, so my Instagram, I mean, you'll see there that I've branched out from Mac stuff a bit. I am just retro computer curious in general, and
I love that little libretto pamphlet. Jeez, that's cool.
Oh yeah, it was really cool. That was another thing that came from Japan with some other stuff. There you go, and it's the same size. It's 1-to-1. It's so
that
cool.
is amazing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I have a little libretto. No, it's fine. I have a little libretto. No, I'll say, like, the Sun stuff comes up because my dad's got quite an academic job, and when I was young, the only computers that were good enough for the work he did were Sun computers. So I grew up like with thinking that having a Sun workstation on your desk was like normal, and having email was normal. And we're talking like 1990, 1991. So the Sun stuff comes in there. So the next is because of the Mac collection and my interest in design and the GUI. The Sun is because of my dad. The B is because of being a teenager and playing with B and just thinking this is really interesting. So that's why the other stuff sort of creeps in. And like Sun stuff, I have to say, it kind of does my head in. I'm not a command line person, but I would love to learn my way around it more. And also, the other thing that I want to do is run this. Shall I get for you? Is this the right version? Yes. How many people know what this is?
Oh boy.
So this is an official Apple way of running the Mac on your Sun SparkStation, and I have both versions of this. I also have the one that runs on HP UX machines, which is Hewlett Packard's like Unix workstation. So I've got an Apollo workstation over there. That's for another day. But yeah, so you can see here that this is the CDE, which is the common desktop environment. And then in it, you can see a Mac running away. And this is what Apple made. This was them, trying to get into corporate headquarters again, like desperately trying to get their Mac into these places. And, I've got the CD and everything. Like this is
now, is that,
one of those things you just
archived?
don't see that often.
Have you archived those discs?
I've not archived it. No, on archive.org, you can get MA1 and 3. And this is 2,
okay.
So I really should archive it. I really should. And I've got, like I said, I've got...
Just add it to your list.
This is the one for HP. So
now,
there we go. You can tell the difference by the color of the sticker.
So are they the same inside, or are different floppies in there, or different drivers or anything?
Everything's the same. Everything the same, except you just get a different CD-ROM.
Okay.
That's it. With a different installer. But, this is the thing. I like all this weird stuff. Like this is... I've got the Unix that was built to run on Macs, and this is actually like the development environment for building stuff. Thing called Mac 10, which is a Unix designed to work on Macs at one point. And this is if you want to build software for it, this is what you use. And it's a bit mad because it's like a development environment for writing software that runs sort of on itself. This is one of those recursive things that breaks your head if you think about it too much. But yeah, so like I like all that really weird at the edges stuff, because the stories behind it are just, they make up all of it, and also they're a really good demonstration of Apple had way too much R&D money. No wonder they almost went out of business.
I'm on your Instagram, of course. What's your cat's name? They are adorable.
That's Dusty. She is actually American. She came over here before I owned her. She grew up in Baltimore, if you can believe it. And then she came over here when she was like, I think 9 or 10, and I've had her for 5 or 6 years.
Adorable.
And she, when I got her, she was massively overweight, and the first thing we had to do was get her down from 7.5 kilos to about, I don't know, I think I got her down to like whatever a healthy amount is, 4 or something. It's like she lost half her body weight. But yeah, no, and she likes getting cat fur in the Macs, and that's about as far as her appreciation goes.
That is awesome. I mean, I have to say, I'm a huge fan of the pixel art that you do. We were talking about this one you did of Totoro before, and just you had at one point. I'm just scrolling down to see if I could find it. You had at one point 3 portrait display monitors set up at your desk, which was the biggest flex I've ever seen. So kudos to you.
I realized that I had these portrait displays, and I realized that I had enough video cards, and I was like, of course I have to do this. Even though,
and here are those developer CDs. Yeah, those are cool. I'm just scrolling through your Instagram here, looking at some of those.
No. You know, it reminded me how much cool stuff I have that I haven't been able to touch for so long, because my son is, pretty important to spend time with, and it is not compatible yet with retro computing.
Not yet. There's the photo.
I'm working on it. There they are. There they go. So yeah, and that's got one of my pictures, my pixel art pictures on it.
And those are wonderful. Do you have a shop where you sell them or anything, or?
So that's what I should have got ready before this.
There'll be another time. Don't worry.
Basically, I wanted a project on my free. So I've run a couple of technology startups, and I wanted something to have some downtime and not, get rid of the phone and sit in front of a retro computer where I can't be bothered by anyone, and I can relive the fun of that I always used to have of drawing pixel art. And so I set myself a project which is basically try and do all hockey size. I think is it 36 views of Mount Fuji, and they're gorgeous. The hockey size stuff's really interesting. I could totally nerd out on hockey size, completely separately from retro computing. I'm very into art and design. I find it all at least as fascinating as retro computing. And I was like, there's the Susan Kerr picture of which is the Japanese woodblock print of the woman combing her hair. On the. I'll show an example so we don't have to. It's better to show than to tell, isn't it? There it is on the front of a sealed matte paint.
Oh wow! There you
go.
That is cool.
So there was that, and that sort of inspired me. And I love Japanese art of that era from the ukiyo-e era. Ukiyo-e was an era where it was basically all about people who had too much money and lay about all day taking drugs and enjoying themselves and dancing and being promiscuous. And because they had money, they could buy art and stuff, and basically woodblock prints were a popular media. And Hokusai didn't make original paintings. He made prints which were designed to be published, in their hundreds or their thousands. Wow. And so anyway, I'll stop nerding out on that. But I just loved the style, and I was like, okay, it's like really awful to make it all black and white in a way, but at the same time, there's something really interesting about the craft that goes into woodblock printmaking and the craft that goes into pixel art, and there's similar constraints. And I was just like, I'm going to draw all 36 views on my retro Mac. So I'll use my mouse. Sometimes I'll use my Wacom art pad, and it'll just be really nice. And I really loved it. And then my son came along after about 3 or 4, and as each one takes like 10 to 15 hours to do, I stopped doing them.
I have there's the wave on the screen now. That is just awesome.
Yeah, so and there's tons of detail. And the awful thing that Instagram and Twitter do is they compress it, and so they ruin all the detail. And obviously, I've spent ages being like, should that pixel be black or white? And there's a lot. So a lot of work goes into that, and I absolutely love it. But I just haven't been able to have the time. So I'm only partway through someday I'll get to it. And my plan is like you have alluded to. My plan is that I would like to. Ideally, sell them as prints. Probably not to like make a living off,
Yeah.
but just so people can have them. And when I asked my followers back when I had time, would you like prints? Like loads of people said they wanted it, and of course I feel like I've let people down because I haven't been able to.
Well,
but life
I have a few
caught up with me.
I have a few image writers. I could be your U.S. distributor of pixel art on dot matrix.
Do you want the worst reproduced pictures that will probably fade in like 6 months?
That's fine.
Then I'll make them. I've got an image writer here. Oh, I hate having printers. I had an image writer too, all boxed, perfect with everything, and I sold it on eBay, and I think it went for 99p.
Oh, I would have bought that if the shipping would have killed me.
I know, that's the thing. They weigh so much. But yeah, a friend of mine sold me their original Macintosh that used to belong to their mum about a couple of years ago. He's a very nice chap. I used to work with him, and I restored it all, but it came with Image Writer 1, and I was just like, oh, what am I going to do with it? I've still got it here. I just want to, like, I don't care about, it's the Image Writer 1, whatever. Don't care if it's any historical significance, nothing. I'm no interest in having printers. Just want them out of my life. I've got a Star Writer 2. I want it to all go.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with the Image Writer because that was the first printer we had, the Image Writer 2, and we had the color ribbon for it, and so on a lot of my streams I'll mess around with the printer and people roll their eyes. They're like, oh, it's this crazy guy's bringing out this printer again that he has this weird obsession with. but you could someone saying in the chat there, it's planned obsolescence. You're going to print these out, they're going to fade, so they have to keep buying these prints from you. So that's how you're going to make your.
You can have so it could be a subscription.
Yeah, your son's university
I'll send you
fund.
a new one just in time.
Oh, these are good ideas, but they're also horrible ideas.
So yeah, like the last though I had some free time at some point. I think my son was like, I don't know, 6 months or a year old or something, and I was like, I really just need to decompress with a bit of pixel art. And so the last thing I made was that Totoro scene, and obviously that is one of the best scenes in the film. Which I've watched it too. I've watched Ghibli films far too many times. I mean, they're properly bizarre. That was one of those things where I was like, one of those. I think this is a common experience for. I won't go on about parenting too much. I think it's a common experience of like just assuming that Pixar and Ghibli films are fine for small kids. They are not.
Yeah,
they're really not. Like Ghibli films, I'd forgotten how many twisted, crazy things happen in them. So yeah,
there's family, and then there's family.
Yeah. Maybe when he's a teenager, but Yes, I know that scene is just like the most magical scene with them at the bus stop and the drips of rain coming down, and they're like so miserable and tired, and it's just so sweet with like her with her little sister on her back, and it's just the cutest scene. And I was just like, I could easily draw that as pixel art, and that would be like a couple of hours, and I did a couple of hours, and it was really enjoyable. And it's on my website, and if people want to download it and use it for stuff, like go ahead, just like. Don't take the mickey and try and sell it yourself or something, but it's on my website. You can download it. I'm sorry, my website is the slowest website in the universe. I don't know why that is. I don't have time to fix it. I don't care enough.
I'm gonna go there now because I have to show people this wonderful website that you have. Let's see if I could bring that up here again. Here we are. Let me just scale it. I'm on a weird setup here with this monitor. That the Mac does not understand the weird resolution that this cheapo monitor is. So there we go. That should be okay. So this is your fantastic website. I love the design.
It's really out of date.
I love the design.
But look at the last 21st of May 2019 is the last post. I'm really sorry. I'm not a blogger.
No, this is. But yeah, I love how interactive it is, though.
Yeah, and if you hover your mouse over the top left, where you normally get an Apple logo,
you pop up
over my face. I pop up. Yeah, it's all very silly. Boink. Yeah, I worked for ages on that, and like the scroll bars are real native scroll bars. when you're on a page that has a scroll bar. I could do more with that, and it's responsive as well. So on a mobile phone, on your iPhone, it should look pretty Mackie as well. There's a lot of tricks you have to do to stop it dithering the graphics, like all the anti-aliasing is turned off. Some brilliant person got all the original Mac fonts and made a font that you can use on modern computers.
Oh, cool.
So I'm using that as well.
That is awesome.
It doesn't work on classic Macs, I'm pretty sure, because it uses modern HTML and CSS.
Oh, yeah. That's the bane of the existence of those Macs.
Yeah, I would need to make, like Steve, I would need to make a retro.hypertalking.com. That's a project for another day, which will never happen, I think, unfortunately. Like, this is the thing, like, you start unpicking this and there's like a million things that I want to do, and I now have negative free time these days. This is my free time. And it's like we're getting to like my bedtime. This is a joke. It's not even my bedtime's like 9:30 these days. If I want to stay on top of everything that life throws at me.
Well, I do think that everyone is super appreciative of the time you are spending to tell us these awesome stories. Because
I'm having fun. Don't get me wrong.
I'm having a blast.
Fun. I could stay here till 9 a.m. but it would be bad. It would be bad for me.
So I'm curious. I'm sorry. Go on.
No. Your next query, please.
Yes, I was just curious because someone mentioned in the chat, and I don't know if we talked about this yet, but what is the modern computer that you use for day-to-day stuff?
Well, I've got a slightly starting to get aged MacBook Pro. That's my personal machine here that I'm using, where the webcam's even stopped working. But I have, I do until the ARM Macs came out. I had the top of the range MacBook Pro 13-inch, which was very nice. I mean, it's got 32 gigs of RAM, which is just ridiculous. I mean, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
But because my previous one had 16 gigs of RAM and kept slowing down, I was suspicious of the amount of RAM, so I just spec'd it out to the max. Wow. I don't know what the spec is, actually, to be honest. I can't remember, but I do know it's got ludicrous amounts of RAM. But because even though I'm not a like developer by any means, I do have to run the app my company makes, because I do go in and tweak HTML and CSS, although I do that less and less these days, especially now we've hired a designer, so I don't have to. And I'm sort of leadership team, so it's best if I stay out of. It's best I stay out of things that need to be done properly, if you know what I mean.
But you're dangerous enough if you have to be.
Oh yeah, and it is dangerous. It is dangerous. Like, I have to admit to sins to my developer team. I have to be like, I'm really sorry, I did this thing, and I think I've done it wrong.
Can you go have a look?
Again, yeah. I'm afraid I merged the pull request without checking with anyone first, and then I get in trouble.
Just a little bit.
I'm sure people on the chat know what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, I'm one of those people that knows like 3 Git commands, and they're just the ones where you can break everything if you do it wrong. So,
yeah, sudo rm.
Yeah.
Just that type of responsibility is a bit of what I should not have.
I know that sudo means that I can do stuff.
Oops. So, now everyone has to work the weekend. Sorry.
Yeah. It's not too bad. They're a good team. Things can be rolled back, etc.
That's good.
But yeah. So I'm doing it less and less though. I'm becoming better behaved.
Well, I'm sure we'll have you back on again, because I know there's a bunch of cool stuff that we wanted to talk about more. And I know that your time is limited, but again, I just wanted to appreciate you taking the time to tell these stories, because we were chatting a bit a few days ago, and you were just saying, you'd love to have sort of a your own channel and stuff like that. But, I think this is a great way also to, not just because it's my channel, but to get your voice out there and to get these cool stories and these tidbits and stuff that just are unique. So I'm very thankful to have you here on our inaugural episode of this OpenTalk, whatever the heck it is, that we've developed, because I pulled that name out of my hat after you reminded me. You're like, come on, let's do this. I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna have to call it something. So
no, I think it's a great name. It feels very Apple-y in the mid 90s, when there was just like all these names going around. And thank you for having me on, because like, it would be lovely to have a YouTube channel, but the only reason I want a YouTube channel is what I've said before. Like, I just want to share this stuff.
Yeah.
And I am not going to have the time to ever have a YouTube channel. So I'm always happy to come on whenever. Like,
Of course.
I can do this regularly if you want.
Yeah.
If people want me to come back, and like we barely scraped the sort of even the top layer of all the crap in this room. Like there's this shelf behind me. There's like another one there, and another one over there, and another one there of stuff. I mean, maybe I'll do a very quick twirl around the room so people can see, but I'm really happy to talk about anything in here. I mean, we can even do a thing where people just circle something in the room and say, "What's that?"
You'll be there for 8 hours.
Half an hour about it. I would.
Yeah,
I would. Look, shall I show?
Yeah,
shall I show everyone the room?
Yeah, I think one of the premises was to make sure you're mobile for this. So let's take advantage of that. Let me switch you to full screen.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Everyone, put your jewel guards on because you're going to need them.
Yes, and I'm sorry if it's a bit shaky cam, and I don't want anyone to get sick. And I'm using the front camera. I'm sorry. So here we've got this is lots of box stuff here. You can see there's a CD, speakers,
I like the
keyboard,
dead with the little sad face.
Yeah. I blew up an 040 accelerator. I'm assured by someone who knows a lot better than me that I've only blown one chip, and I probably can get a replacement. So, but yeah, I felt pretty bad about that. That was an accident. Couple of Next keyboards up here.
Oh, wow.
There's Sun keyboard and mouse in there. That's what my Mac Effect case came in. I got the see-through.
Oh, nice.
Standard one. There's a cube hiding back there. This is my Hewlett Packard Unix machine. This is Apollo. I won't go into that. That's a whole other world. There's the Lisa. Oh, I found the webcam. It's in this box.
Oh, there you go.
Look, I wrote it on the outside. But probably don't have to. Next time. And then this 2FX came really cheap. Sorry to annoy everyone, but someone was leaving the country, and I've caught a couple of people as they're leaving the country and not wanting to take all their stuff with them, and I got that dirt cheap. That works perfectly. I ended up with 2 2FXs at one point.
Wow.
This Quadra 660 is made out of 2 660s that were both very sad, and I merged all the parts.
Now they're happier.
Yeah. There's a Spark station, but it's like a weird clone unnamed thing this was used. I've got to be careful I don't just go on, but that was used on a production line that made silicon wafers.
You could go on as much as you want. I am just trying to be aware of your limited time.
Yeah. So down here we've got my Quadra 950. This is because I just moved a few months ago, so there's still stuff wrapped up. This is a 9150 workgroup server. So that in alone has got really great stories behind it. That was never meant to be a Mac. That was never meant to be a Macintosh ever, but it looks kind of like a 950, but it isn't. There's my Radius clone down there, the Radius 100. So that was the first clone that came to market, I think.
Yeah, it was one of the early ones.
If I'm correct. Yeah, and then there's my beloved 700. Been through a few of them. This is one of the favorite things I've ever found. The Universal Monitor stand.
Oh, I have one in the box right behind me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Very hard to find, as Mingo on the chat will attest to. He spent a while looking for it. Then this is my mess. There's my this is the sort of workshop area around here. This has got my latest thing. This is a Sun Voyager. This is a very weird workstation. This was actually made in Scotland, bizarrely. They were all made in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
These computers. Sun had a factory there. IBM had a factory there. Lots of companies had factories there in the 90s. I just got another copy of BIOS 5 boxed. I've got a whole bunch of boxed BIOSes. And then these are all my books and stuff. Those are my Lisa manuals. There's some Next manuals there. Wow. Those are the Apple developer CDs.
I just love that view. It's so cool.
Couple of Apple laser discs up there. A bunch of marketing stuff. Manuals. There's crap here still from moving. Sorry about that. And then there's my Vectrex, which is a very recent thing that I got.
Oh, you got the cool overlay there too on it.
Yeah, this is a game that only came out a year or two ago for Vectrex, made by a guy in the UK. Basically, the Vectrex has 2 controller ports, but only 1-player games. And so he made a cartridge, which is 10 or 15 2-player games, and they are brilliant. And he made an overlay for it and everything.
Wow.
So it's really cool, really cool. They're really good games as well. Some of them collaborative, some of them, what's the other word? Competitive. There we go.
That's cool.
This is my Next Station Turbo.
Oh, wow.
I bought this because I wanted the monitor, because this is the monitor that came with the cube.
Oh, okay.
So I have got a friend who's got 4 cubes.
Oh, my
He also
goodness.
has a Lisa 1.
Wow.
So I was just trying to keep up with him, really. This is a present from my partner, which is quite a fun
Oh,
little
that's
poster.
beautiful. Where is that? Is
Quite
that
cute,
a
isn't it?
modern poster or a retro, like an older one?
That's 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 a modern one. Some company called Dorothy, or they're like a design company or something. You can, like, I'm pretty sure you can still buy it if you Google that.
Very cool.
Then we've got some boxed Macs up here, an SE30 and an SE.
Oh, lovely.
I've had a lot of box Macs like that, but they just take up so much space. So these are the two that I just wanted to keep, because this one basically had never been used, and like it's still inside like the kind of the protective wrapping and everything.
Well, you
It's
have
crazy.
how much ceiling clearance you have there? You have a few more inches.
don't do that. And then this is my Pulsar from the original owner, which I think we should do an unboxing of at some point on to go in with your clones theme. We should do that.
Excellent.
Then these are the B boxes, which just the industrial design is hilarious and brilliant. And like these are LED strips either side that light up when the processors are being used.
That's cool.
So the more you're texting the computer, the more they light up. And there's one for each processor. It's really good. And we've got two aside, two CR hidden down here. I think the image writer's in there. There's an Apple scanner. This is not a box with a PowerBook 100 in. It's a box with like 10 PowerBooks in it, I think. In here is the Taiwanese conversion kit for turning a Macintosh SE into a laptop computer.
Oh, yes.
The LPA 001, it's got the worst name ever. A company called DTC. So that is something that we should touch on. I've got a lot of clone related stuff that we should we should do a dedicated clone
We
chat,
certainly will. I'll take you up on that.
Pippin software. This is lots of software that everyone's seen a bit. There's stuff hiding behind, like there's all Dorling Kindersley.
Wow.
Got some old Adobe stuff, old Microsoft stuff, like original PowerPoint before it was Microsoft.
Oh, that's right.
In there, that's right off.
They have a sticker on it.
Forethought, and you can see, sticker, because they just acquired it. And then of course, because I'm mad, then there's the version from after Microsoft put their logo on it. Sorry,
but it still has the sticker.
And
But you have to have it because it's different.
It's just slightly different. And then the Voyager collection's up here. With all the interesting multimedia stuff that they did. It was kind of before everyone else doing multimedia. And then we've got the Cube, the next Cube, with its ridiculous magneto optical drive that is just slow as hell. And we've got the next software and the B software there. So there's some Bs if you want. And then here we've just got like random installers for Apple and stuff, and then drives, software. Oh, it just goes on. And then my latest obsession is weird Lego Dacta programmable robotics kits from the early 90s, which we'll get into maybe another time.
Those are cool. I remember you telling me about those.
Yeah, these are really cool. These are Japanese shareware collections that you could get, where you have like a couple of floppy disks and then a book that's about all of the authors of the software, and they're just so cool. And they're like utilities and games and fonts. And this one here is actually all Hypercard stacks by the same artist called Yukiko Miyashita. The chap who sent me all of these from Japan has actually archived that. You can get that on archive.org or maybe Macintosh Garden, I can't remember.
Oh, great.
And they're just really cool.
But maybe we'll have to do
he was really...
one of these sessions where we talk, but you're archiving as we talk. It'll give us both a good excuse to do that.
People will love that. And now I'm putting in the next floppy. And then
you'd be surprised.
Up here, we've got a couple. We've got the Amiga. That's my partner's Amiga that I got her, and she recapped that. That was quite fun doing that together. And then we've got an Outbound in there. I can't remember if it's the notebook or the laptop. And then there's a Dynamac in there. Both obviously clones but conversions, so they were legal but not licensed. And then down here we've got my portable. I've been through loads of portables. This is the back screen version that I've kept. And there's another Outbound there. And then we've got a bunch of Macs on the floor in case. And then all my drawers are just full of new bus cards and scuzzy.
As they should be. As they should be.
Where is it? There's like this is like the drawer of scuzzy cables.
And then you have a drawer full of Terminators, you know.
Basically, this is a drawer of mice.
Oh, wow.
We've got we've got those, the HP mice I showed earlier came out of here. There's some Next mice in here and, everything. And it just goes on.
That is beautiful.
Forever.
That is absolutely beautiful.
Like I said, we could probably do 1,000 shows, going through everything. So I think, like, I guess if like people have requests for things they want to see, we can do another one based around something that everyone wants to see. And I think it'd be really cool to do a clone one. I think we could do a clone one for old conversion kits, and we could do a clone one for like licensed clones. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm up for
anything, really.
That is fantastic. I will be your vehicle of distribution for whatever the heck you want to talk about, because I'm as fascinated as everyone else is in the chat. I mean, we're getting comments that people need to know how to remove Jewel from their keyboard, and it seems like at least one or two people are up for the stream of us individually archiving crap as we just yak about things. So.
I know. Sorry about the Spark Station Voyager, the person who I outbid. I'm sorry about that. But I am. You should be pleased you didn't have to clean the keyboard. Ooh. It took me 3 hours. I wore gloves, and I found a lot of stuff in there that I didn't want to see.
Yuck.
But I will be fixing it all up. And there's a lot of things. So yeah, no, there's just so much stuff, and yeah, I'd love to share it with you, Steve, because we have fun chats.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do this on my own. I think I think it's more fun to have someone to, like, you asking me about stuff, me asking you about stuff, and like we've both got stories about these things. So
yeah, my face hurts from smiling and laughing so much. That means we're having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. It's like I can't do it all the time, but I can do it as often as I can, and like let's try and do it as much as we can. I would be really up for that. And it, like I said, I just want to share this stuff with people. So anything that people want to see, like, just say, and let's do it.
Yeah,
basically,
I'm all for it.
I probably need to work out how to get. I probably need some computers set up to run things if people want to run stuff. But if we knew what we had to run first, then we could all watch the, computers crashing together.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Because it always goes wrong, right?
It always does. It always does. No matter what. You could have it perfect, and then you sneeze, and it all goes to hell.
Yeah. Oh, I installed the wrong version of the extension. Damn it.
Yep. Or this is conflicting with this. Yeah, and so you need to get conflict catcher out. Oh,
cool.
That is.
But yeah,
great.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
I've had great fun too.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait to have you on again. Obviously, everybody in the chat is very receptive to this idea of this being a continuing trend with you and other guests. So I'm so pleased that you opened your collection and shared these stories, because it has been fantastic. Be sure to check out James on Instagram. His username is Hypertalking, and go to hypertalking.com. That's his fabulous retro website there. Is there anything else that you want to plug, or you just want to give a shout out to? Let's just give you time to plug whatever.
No, I think please follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, and a lot of people reach out to me for advice and tips and ideas, and where I can, I help. I can't always help, that's for sure. There's loads of obscure things out there, and just because I've got all this stuff doesn't mean that I know the key to finding it all or fixing it all. But I'll help when I can, and I love chatting to people. Tell me what you want to see, and I will share it if I can.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's it really. I've got nothing. I'm just doing this because I enjoy doing it. Think of my collection as like a museum you can go and visit. It's just a bit inconvenient, but I will go into the archives and pull things out to share with everyone.
Excellent.
And I'm so up for it.
That's awesome. So in the comment section of this video, or in the chat, whatever you want to do, or you could go to our Twitters and just tag us and let us know what you want to hear. Thank you, Mingo Hagen. That is very, very generous of you. Eep. That wasn't a good eep. Hold on. I'll try my best. Yeah, you do yours first, James, and I'll try and match it.
Eep. I think I'm almost on the right note there.
Eep. Kind of. It's been a long time, but that is excellent. So. Oh boy. Well, thank you so much, James, for joining. I really do appreciate it. We'll have to have you on the show again, because this has been fantastic. And everyone in the chat, let us know what you want to see, and we'll go on from there. So, James, I'm gonna bid you farewell, and I'm gonna close up the show. But greatly appreciate you stopping by, and get some rest.
Likewise. See you soon.
Take care. Thank you. All right, so that was awesome having James on the show. I will be looking at the comments, making sure that you guys have some good information about what to see next. Oh, sorry, 1 second. And I think that was a great way to end our first episode of whatever this is, whether it's a video podcast or whatever it is. But I hope you enjoyed it. This was kind of an experiment. I think it went well, and we didn't have too many technical hiccups, so how about that? But James has a fantastic collection. Again, check out his website, check out his Instagram, and I guess that's all we have to say for now. So I'd like to thank you for stopping by, and if you want to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow James on his Instagram and Twitter as well. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. His username is Hypertalking. Mine is Mac84. And that's about it. So thank you guys for joining. Greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.